Power doesn't always reveal itself in big moves. It hides in whispers, in silence, and in the games people don't even realize they're playing. The true masters of influence don't shout their plans. They bury them beneath casual talk, drama, and distraction. In this video, I'm going to expose the hidden strategies that leaders, manipulators, and empires have used for centuries. The very tactics that can make or break your control in business, relationships, or life itself. If you're ready to learn not just how power is gained, but how it's disguised and protected, stay locked in, because by the end of this video, you'll see the world through a lens most people never notice. And before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss the next chapter in this unfiltered power series. Bury your intentions. Beneath casual talk, the greatest mistake most people make when they want something is that they reveal too much, too soon. They speak of their plans, their desires, their next moves with excitement, hoping to impress or convince others. But every word of open ambition is a warning sign to anyone listening. It sparks resistance, jealousy, and suspicion. The ones who last in the game of power understand a different truth. Influence is not announced, it is hidden. The art is not to lie outright, but to bury your real purpose under the safety of ordinary conversation. A few harmless jokes, some small talk about the weather, a casual question about work. These are not just fillers, they are shields. They soften the atmosphere, lower defenses, and convince others that you have no agenda worth guarding against. Yet beneath those simple words, you are already measuring, calculating, and planning your next step. When you master this art, people begin to underestimate you. They assume you are just passing time, being friendly, or showing curiosity, when in reality you are gathering information, reading their weaknesses, and setting the board for the moves they will never see coming. This is not deception, it is camouflage. You do not storm the gates, you walk through them disguised as a guest. While others are distracted by the comfort of conversation, you are plotting storms behind the smile. By the time they notice, the plan is already too far along to stop. This subtlety makes you unforgettable. In a world where most are too loud, too obvious, too eager to prove themselves, your restraint becomes magnetic. You don't fight for control of the conversation. You let them think they have it. You let them laugh, brag, or dominate the air while you stay calm and unnoticed. And then in that silence, you plant the seeds of influence, seeds so small that they deny power. While seizing it, the most dangerous figure in any room is not the one who loudly demands authority, but the one who pretends to reject it. Open ambition is like fire. It attracts attention, but it also attracts enemies. The moment you declare you want control, others sharpen their weapons. But when you deny power, when you act as though you are indifferent to it, even uncomfortable with it, suspicion dissolves. You become the harmless one, the quiet helper, the person who seems content in the background. Yet, beneath that image, you are carefully building influence, brick by brick, weaving yourself into the fabric of every decision without anyone realizing when it happened. This is the paradox of true power. The more you seem to avoid it, the more it falls into your hands. People begin to trust you with sensitive information because they think you won't use it. They bring you closer, assuming you have no hidden agenda. They relax their guard, never suspecting that the very indifference they admire is your greatest disguise. You don't fight for control. You let it come to you naturally. While others battle for recognition, you become indispensable. You fix problems no one else can. You guide situations when others are lost. You offer solutions without demanding authority, and slowly, people realize they cannot move forward without you. The brilliance of this approach lies in patience. You don't announce your takeover. You don't fight for the crown. You let others wear themselves out chasing attention, while you wait calmly in the shadows. One day, they look around and realize you are the one holding everything together. By the time they recognize your influence, it feels natural, inevitable, as though it grew without effort. And because you never asked for power, no one can accuse you of stealing it. This is why denying power is so effective. It disarms enemies. Let others chase credit. The world is filled with people who hunger for recognition. They want applause, titles, awards, and public validation. They crave the spotlight because it feeds their ego. But while they run themselves dry, chasing visible proof of success, the true strategist understands that credit is overrated. Recognition may be loud, but it fades. Control is quiet, and it lasts. If you let others chase credit, you free yourself from the burden of attention, while quietly building the foundation that makes you untouchable. Let them fight for the stage. Let them argue over whose name appears on the report, who gets the headline, or who receives the praise. Smile and clap for them. Celebrate their so-called victories. Make them feel like champions. While they bask in the moment, you are already moving the next piece into place. Because while they are enjoying applause, you are accumulating something far more valuable: leverage. You are shaping outcomes, guiding resources, and positioning yourself as the architect behind their success. The brilliance of this tactic is in its invisibility. People rarely attack the person who stays out of the spotlight. They attack the one in front of the crowd because envy lives where recognition shines. By stepping back, you avoid becoming a target while still holding the strings of power. The one they cheer for today is temporary. The one they consult, rely on, and quietly obey is permanent. Over time, this builds a network of influence. People return to you for guidance, for approval, for solutions, not because you demand it, but because you have already proven yourself indispensable. The faces in the spotlight will come and go, but your hand remains steady, shaping events in silence. Credit fades like applause after a show. Control endures, shaping the script for every performance that follows. That is why real power belongs not to the one on stage, but to the one who wrote the play. I master the art of the strategic no. Most people believe power comes from how much you say yes to, how many opportunities you grab, how many favors you agree to, how much you can give. But the opposite is true. Real authority is measured by how well you can say no. Every time you agree too quickly, you lower your value. Every time you make yourself too available, you appear less significant. But when you refuse, calmly, carefully, strategically, you remind the world that your presence is not to be assumed, that your time and energy are worth something. The problem is that most people fear saying no. They fear rejection, disapproval, or being disliked, so they spread themselves thin, overcommitting and diluting their worth. But those who master the strategic no do the opposite. They decline not with arrogance, but with clarity. They refuse not to reject others, but to protect themselves. They make their no a tool of influence, not a wall of resistance. When you refuse with grace, you create scarcity, and scarcity multiplies demand. Think of the person who is always available. They become taken for granted. Their yes carries no weight. But the one who says no sparingly, the one whose approval must be earned, becomes the authority. People begin to approach them with more care, more respect, more effort. Suddenly, your yes feels like a reward, not an obligation, and in that moment, you shift the balance of power. A well-placed no can reset an entire negotiation. It can reshape a relationship. It can elevate your standing in a room without raising your voice. It sends a message. I am not desperate. I am not everyone's answer. My value is not free. That message lingers longer than any eager yes ever could. To master the strategic no is to master the art of boundaries. It is to let the world know that you are not controlled by others' urgency, that your energy is precious, and to make silence your sharpest tool. Most people fear silence. They see it as awkward, uncomfortable, a void that must be filled quickly with words. But the one who understands power sees silence as a weapon sharper than any argument. When you remain silent, when you resist the urge to speak too soon, you gain control of the entire tempo of the exchange. People cannot stand empty space, so they rush to fill it. And in that rush, they reveal more than they intended: fears, insecurities, hidden truths that you could never have uncovered if you had spoken first. In a world that rewards noise and endless commentary, silence becomes rare, and rarity is power. A pause before you answer makes you appear thoughtful, calculated, above impulse. People lean in, waiting, analyzing, wondering what you are thinking. Even when there is no hidden meaning, they will imagine one. That is the beauty of silence. It makes others project their own fears and assumptions onto you while you give away nothing in return. Silence also creates mystery. The person who constantly talks is predictable. Their emotions, intentions, and weaknesses spill out with every word. But the one who holds back becomes unreadable, and what cannot be read cannot be controlled. In negotiations, your silence forces the other side to bend first, to make the offer, to second-guess their position. In arguments, your silence diffuses escalation, because nothing is more frustrating to an opponent than attacking someone who refuses to react. In leadership, silence creates authority. When you finally do speak, your words carry the weight of scarcity. The trick is to use silence deliberately, not passively. It must feel intentional, like a pause that commands attention, not a gap born of hesitation. Sit calmly, breathe slowly. Let them sweat in the stillness. Let them over-explain. Let them drown themselves in their own words. B. Withdraw affection to stir obsession. Human beings do not crave what is freely given. They crave what has been taken away. Affection, attention, kindness, when offered constantly, it becomes routine. People stop valuing it, stop noticing it, stop being moved by it. But when it suddenly disappears, when the warmth turns to coldness without warning, it creates a vacuum that consumes the mind. This is the psychology of obsession. People become addicted not to the gift itself, but to the loss of it. When you give affection, praise, or attention consistently, you build habits in others. They come to expect your validation, your laughter, your presence. It becomes part of their rhythm, their emotional stability. Then, when you withdraw it, subtly, not cruelly, you trigger panic. They begin to question themselves. What changed? Was it something they did? Why were you close yesterday but distant today? That uncertainty loops in their mind, over and over, until it becomes an obsession to win you back. The power of this tactic lies in contrast. You are not withholding affection permanently. You are creating highs and lows, warmth and coldness, abundance and scarcity. That unpredictability hooks people deeper than constant kindness ever could. It is the reason charismatic leaders, lovers, and manipulators wield such power. They give generously, then pull back just enough to awaken longing. This technique must be used carefully. It is not about cruelty. It is about control through presence and absence. You smile, then go silent. You praise, then withhold. You appear close, then distant. And each shift makes your attention feel more valuable, more addictive, more essential. In the end, people don't just want your affection. They want the resolution to the mystery of why they lost it. That hunger ties them to you. It bends their emotions, reshapes their behavior, and keeps them chasing us. Charm laced with danger. Charm on its own is pleasant. It is warm, likable, attractive, but also forgettable. People enjoy it, but it rarely leaves a lasting mark. True magnetic power is born when charm carries an edge, when there is something slightly unsettling beneath the smile, something unpredictable that keeps people guessing. That combination, warmth mixed with danger, is irresistible because it creates tension in the human mind. People feel both safe and uncertain at the same time, and that contradiction locks their attention on you. When you are only charming, people relax. They know what to expect. But when you are charming with a trace of unpredictability, they lean closer, fascinated, alert, unable to look away. It is the balance between comfort and risk that creates obsession. You smile, but it feels like you could walk away at any moment. You laugh, but there's a sharpness beneath it. You are kind, but never weak. Affectionate, but never needy. That duality makes people crave your approval, because they never feel entirely secure in it. The danger here is not physical violence. It is emotional independence. It is the ability to withdraw without warning, to remain unattached, to act without needing anyone's permission. That self-sufficiency is what makes charm powerful. Because people can never fully predict you, they never fully control you. And what cannot be controlled becomes irresistible. This is why the most magnetic figures in history and in life are never just sweet. They are sweet with a shadow, playful with an edge, gentle, but capable of being cold. They keep others on their toes, never sure whether they are safe or about to lose everything. And in that uncertainty, people lean in harder. They chase more. They reveal more. They try endlessly to win you, not realizing that the game is already set in your favor. Charm without danger is temporary. Charm with danger becomes unforgettable. Lead through suggestion, not instruction. Power that shouts is fragile. The more you command, the more people resist. Human pride is wired to reject orders even when the command makes sense. That's why the truly influential never bark instructions. They guide minds through suggestion. Instead of saying, "Do this," they plant thoughts like seeds. "Have you considered?" Or, "What if we tried it this way?" A question, a subtle idea, a gentle nudge. These bypass ego and enter quietly into someone's reasoning. Soon, they believe the choice was their own. And when people believe the decision came from them, they defend it, protect it, and commit to it more deeply than if it had been forced upon them. Think about the psychology here. People hate feeling controlled, but they love feeling wise. If you give them an order, they resist. If you give them an idea disguised as their own, they embrace it. That's how leaders win loyalty, not through instruction, but through influence. The parent guiding a child with stories instead of strict commands. The strategist posing questions in a meeting that shape the outcome without ever claiming credit. The lover who shifts the night's direction with a glance, not a demand. These are masters of silent command. When you master suggestion, you don't need to fight for obedience. You don't even need to reveal authority. People will follow you willingly, thinking they are following themselves. This is the deepest form of power, guiding others without them realizing they've been guided. By the time they act, it feels natural, inevitable, and you remain invisible, the author of choices that no one even knows were yours. Be absent when expected most. Presence creates comfort, but absence creates power. When people come to expect you, your words, your presence, your approval, and suddenly you are nowhere to be found, it shakes them. Confusion sets in, longing rises, doubt creeps in. In that space of absence, your value multiplies. What people once took for granted suddenly becomes rare, and what is rare becomes powerful. Most people believe that loyalty is proven by always showing up, by being available, consistent, and ever-present. But that availability eventually becomes invisible. Familiarity breeds indifference. If you are always there, people stop noticing you. But when you disappear at the height of their expectation, when your withdrawal is sudden and deliberate, your presence gains weight. They replay your importance in their minds. They speak your name in rooms where you are not present. They question themselves. Why aren't you here? Did something change? Did I lose your favor? That questioning strengthens your hold over them. Absence is not neglect. It is strategy. You skip the meeting where your presence was assumed. You don't answer the call everyone expected you to pick up. You delay your return until the silence grows loud. And when you finally reappear, it feels like a storm breaking after drought. Your presence feels earned, not guaranteed. That shift elevates you from ordinary to untouchable. The truth is, absence makes people see your value clearer than presence ever could. By being scarce, you remind them that you are not a guarantee, you are a privilege. And privileges are always chaste. Never fix what benefits you. Most people are obsessed with fixing what looks broken. They want systems to be clean, relationships to be smooth, hierarchies to be fair. But the strategist knows better. Sometimes dysfunction is your greatest advantage. A system that looks flawed to everyone else may secretly bend in your favor. A broken process may create confusion that gives you room to maneuver. A fractured relationship may keep rivals distracted, fighting each other, while you quietly grow stronger in the background. The instinct to fix everything is moral, but power is not about morality. It's about leverage. If a situation's flaws give you an opening, why rush to repair them? To fix is to reveal. To repair is to expose the very cracks that allow you to move unseen. Sometimes it is better to let the cracks remain, to let others waste their time and energy patching walls while you walk through the openings. Think of it like this. A dysfunctional system often creates dependence. If only you know how to navigate it, you become essential. A chaotic environment blinds others, but if you remain calm, you move invisibly. Rivals stuck in endless conflict drain themselves while you conserve strength. By refusing to fix, you allow the brokenness to serve as camouflage and cover for your rise. This doesn't mean you create chaos for its own sake. It means when chaos exists, you don't rush to destroy your own advantage. You let others complain, argue, and exhaust themselves in righteous effort. Meanwhile, you quietly thrive. Power often hides not in perfection, but in imperfection that everyone else overlooks. And when the rules are bent toward you, the last thing you should do is straighten them. Appear inconsistent to disarm. Predictability is comfortable. It allows people to calculate you, prepare for you, and defend against you. But unpredictability unsettles the human mind. When people cannot pin you down, they begin to hesitate, second-guess, and trip over their own assumptions. That is why appearing inconsistent, while secretly guided by strategy, is such a powerful weapon. You don't have to be chaotic or reckless. Instead, you shift just enough to make people unsure whether they know you at all. One day you are generous, the next you are distant. One moment you are playful, the next you are serious. To outsiders, it feels inconsistent, but to you, it is deliberate. This tactic works because humans crave patterns. The brain wants certainty. When someone defies that certainty, it creates unease. People start to chase explanation. They lean in, trying to decode you, obsessing over what you might do next. And in their obsession, they stop protecting themselves. They expose weakness because they are too busy predicting what you might become. Appearing inconsistent also gives you freedom. If people believe you always act in one way, they will trap you with expectation. But if your actions resist being categorized, no one can put you in a box. You gain flexibility to maneuver in ways they never anticipate. In relationships, inconsistency builds intrigue and fascination. In politics, it prevents rivals from reading your playbook. In leadership, it forces followers to pay closer attention because they never know what tone you might strike tomorrow. But here lies the key. Your inconsistency must be surface level. Beneath it, your core strategy must remain steady. To the world, you are unpredictable. To yourself, you are precise. That balance makes you appear untouchable, maddening to enemies, magnetic to allies, unforgettable to all. Maintain plausible deniability. Power does not just come from what you control. It comes from what you can escape. When the storm arrives, the strongest shield is not strength, but distance. To maintain plausible deniability is to master the art of being everywhere and nowhere at once. You are present in influence, but absent in accountability. Your fingerprints are faint, your connections indirect, your words always slippery enough to mean two things at once. If victory comes, you can claim a hand in it. If disaster strikes, you can claim ignorance. This skill is essential because every rise creates enemies. If your involvement is too clear, you become an easy target. But if you maintain ambiguity, you slip through their grasp. People may suspect your influence, but they cannot prove it. You are always one step removed, operating through whispers, through intermediaries, through subtle suggestions rather than direct commands. That way, no matter how heated the fire, you remain untouched. Think about how leaders, businesses, even nations operate. Rarely do they speak in absolutes. They speak in phrases crafted to bend in multiple directions. They give themselves exits. They build shadows into their actions so they can deny what others think they see. And that denial becomes power because it robs opponents of solid ground to attack. Plausible deniability is not about lying. It's about crafting a reality where your involvement cannot be pinned down. You may hint, but never confirm. You may suggest, but never command outright. You move like smoke, visible yet impossible to grasp. And when the time comes, you can step forward with clean hands, while others take the fall for fires you quietly lit. Obscure your motives with uncertainty. Nothing invites resistance faster than clarity. If people know exactly what you want, they can block you. But if your motives are clouded, if no one can quite tell what drives you, they cannot mount a defense. Ambiguity is not weakness, it is protection. It keeps rivals confused, allies dependent, and enemies cautious. To obscure your motives is to turn yourself into a question mark, and questions are far harder to attack than answers. This uncertainty plays with human psychology. People hate not knowing. They overthink, overanalyze, and project their fears onto the unknown. When your motives are unclear, each person will imagine their own version of your plan. Some will overestimate you, giving you more credit than you deserve. Others will underestimate you, leaving you freer to move. Either way, you remain in control, because they are reacting to shadows instead of substance. Unclear motives also keep you free. If you declare your goals too openly, you trap yourself. You bind your future actions to your past statements. But if you remain vague, if you speak in layered language, if you move with shifts of tone rather than clear declarations, you can change direction without contradiction. You can adapt without appearing inconsistent, because no one knew what you were chasing in the first place. Obscurity also builds intrigue. The mysterious figure always draws more attention than the transparent one. People want to decode you, to uncover your secrets, to understand what you really want. And the more they chase that answer, the less they notice your real moves. By the time they piece together fragments of your intent, you are already elsewhere, pursuing something new. To obscure your motives is to make yourself untouchable. Clear targets can be struck down, shadows cannot. Sabotage. Through kindness, most people imagine sabotage as something loud, cruel, and destructive. A strike that leaves no doubt about who delivered it. But the most devastating sabotage is not born of open hostility. It is delivered softly, with a smile, under the disguise of kindness. When people expect resistance, they prepare themselves for battle. But when kindness comes, they drop their guard. They welcome you in, and that is when the true damage begins. Kindness has a hidden edge because it breeds comfort. If you sabotage through cruelty, people resist. But if you sabotage through kindness, people cooperate with their own downfall. They don't see the trap because it doesn't look like a trap. A compliment can steer someone into overconfidence. A favor can make someone dependent. A gift can distract them from the strings attached. By the time they realize the consequences, they have already taken the bait willingly. This method also protects you. Who suspects the smiling ally? Who accuses the generous giver? By operating under kindness, your hands appear clean, even as your influence corrodes from within. Rivals who might have resisted you become softened by gratitude. Enemies you should have fought lower their weapons because they mistake you for a friend. And once their guard is down, sabotage becomes effortless. The brilliance of this approach lies in its invisibility. Open sabotage invites retaliation. Hidden sabotage, disguised as kindness, leaves no enemy to strike back against. They cannot fight you because they cannot even prove you meant harm. And so, they blame themselves, their circumstances, or anyone but you. Meanwhile, you move forward untouched. The sweetest poison is the one wrapped in sugar. Sabotage delivered through kindness is not just effective, it is unforgettable, because the wound it leaves is not physical but psychological. It makes people quarrels. Estian not just you, but every kindness they receive in the future, and that doubt lingers far longer than any scar. Feign weakness to provoke arrogance. Strength intimidates, but weakness tempts. Show people your power too openly, and they will resist you. They will sharpen their defenses and prepare for battle. But show them weakness, whether real or acted, and they lean closer. They underestimate you. They grow arrogant. And arrogance is the crack through which their downfall begins. When you feign weakness, you invite rivals to relax. They no longer see you as a threat, so they expose themselves. They speak too freely, they take risks they would otherwise avoid, and they make mistakes they would never make in the presence of visible power. Their guard lowers, their pride rises, and in that imbalance they create openings for you. It is not your strength that defeats them. It is their own arrogance pulled out of them by the illusion of your weakness. History is full of examples. Generals have pretended retreat only to lure enemies into traps. Leaders have played dumb to gather information, while opponents bragged their secrets away. Even in personal relationships, feigned weakness can shift dynamics. A pause, a sigh, a look of uncertainty can make others step in with overconfidence, believing they now control the situation. In truth, they are walking into the very net you've prepared for them. The brilliance of this tactic is that it uses human pride as a weapon against itself. Arrogance blinds people more effectively than fear. While fear sharpens instincts, arrogance dulls them. When someone believes they are stronger, smarter, or more prepared than you, they become careless. And carelessness is the soil in which your victory grows. To feign weakness is not to be weak. It is to control perception. It is to weaponize humility, turning it into the sharpest blade. The trick is to reveal just enough vulnerability to spark overconfidence, while keeping your true strength hidden until the exact moment you strike. By then, their downfall is not only complete, it feels like it was their own doing. Associate. Only with the rising, the company you keep is either a ladder or a weight. Too many people waste years tied to those who are sinking, clinging to loyalty, pity, or nostalgia, only to be dragged down into the same pit. The wise, however, understand that survival and growth demand alignment with momentum. You must associate only with those who are rising, because their upward motion becomes your environment, their progress becomes your context, and their success pulls you higher simply by proximity. This does not mean abandoning everyone the moment they struggle. It means recognizing patterns. Some people are temporarily down but climbing again. Others are permanently stuck, addicted to failure, anchored to excuses. The former can be allies. Their fight can sharpen yours. The latter are dangers, because they make stagnation feel normal. And in power, nothing is more fatal than standing still while others advance. Associating with the rising also shapes how you are perceived. Reputation spreads by reflection. If you walk with the ambitious, people assume you are ambitious. If you sit with innovators, you are treated as one. If you stand beside leaders, you gain a shadow of their authority. This perception matters, because in many cases, perception is reality. People rarely look closely enough to separate you from those around you, but there is a deeper layer. By surrounding yourself with the rising, you also absorb their mindset. Progress is contagious. Discipline, vision, hunger, these qualities rub off. You cannot spend years with the ambitious and not become sharpened by their fire. Conversely, you cannot linger with the bitter and broken without absorbing their resignation. The people closest to you are not neutral. They are shaping your future every single day. To associate only with the rising is to commit to movement. It is to refuse stagnation, to demand that turn opponents into distractions. Not every enemy in your life needs to be crushed. In fact, destroying every opponent wastes time, energy, and focus that could be used for something much more valuable. The smarter move is to turn your opponents into distractions, into noise that covers up what you are really doing. Think of it this way. When someone is loudly fighting you, pointing fingers, or trying to pull you into conflict, the attention shifts to them. People start watching their drama instead of paying attention to your quiet moves in the background. Their noise becomes your camouflage. While they shout, you build. While they throw punches, you plant seeds. Enemies love when you react because that gives them power. But when you don't fight back directly, they lose control of the stage. Instead of attacking them, you let them believe they're winning. You nod, you smile, you act unbothered, and in the meantime, you're moving your plans forward where no one is looking. Their obsession with you becomes a shield that hides your next step. The more they focus on trying to hurt you, the less they focus on protecting themselves. This strategy works in politics, business, relationships, anywhere power is in play. Think about how often you've seen leaders who seem calm while their critics scream. The critics end up exposing their own insecurities, while the calm leader looks untouchable. That's the real trick. Your enemy burns their reputation while you gain respect for staying composed. You don't even have to respond directly. Just keep advancing while they exhaust themselves in public. Turning opponents into distractions doesn't mean ignoring them. It means using them. Their energy, their anger, their obsession, all of it works to your advantage if you refuse to play their game. Instead of dragging you down, they become a decoy. The crowd watches the drama while you secure the victory quietly, out of sight. That is real control. That is real power. Cultivate useful idiots. Not everyone around you needs to be brilliant or strategic. In fact, some of the most powerful people in history surrounded themselves with people who were easy to flatter, quick to obey, and blind to the bigger game. These are what we call useful idiots. They believe they're acting out of loyalty or principle or ambition, but in reality, they are unknowingly doing the work of someone else. They carry your messages, defend your name, spread your ideas, and fight your battles, while thinking it was all their own idea. The trick is to make them feel important without ever giving them real control. You give them small victories, little compliments, or access that feels exclusive. Maybe you let them sit in a meeting, ask them for advice you don't actually need, or celebrate them in front of others. Their ego grows, and with it, their willingness to protect and promote you. They think they're partners in your rise, but really they are tools in your strategy. This isn't about cruelty, it's about architecture. Every great system, whether an empire, a business, or a movement, uses people who don't see the full picture. Their simplicity becomes your strength, their eagerness makes them reliable, and their blindness makes them safe because they never realize they're disposable. If needed, you can replace them quietly, and they'll still leave thinking they were valuable players. In the end, useful idiots allow you to act without leaving fingerprints. They say the things you can't say. They defend you when you shouldn't defend yourself. And if blame falls, it lands on them instead of you. That is why the powerful don't chase allies who are sharp, suspicious, or independent. They collect the ones who crave validation, and those are the people who will carry their weight without ever realizing they've been carrying chains. Frame failures as noble sacrifices. Failure happens to everyone, but not everyone knows how to turn it into power. Most people hide their failures, deny them, or let them destroy their confidence. But the powerful do something very different. They reframe failure as sacrifice. Instead of admitting defeat, they make it look like a choice. They make it look noble. They make it look like it served a bigger purpose. Imagine you lose a job, a deal, or a relationship. If you present it as a loss, people may pity you or even look down on you. But if you frame it as something you gave up for a higher cause, suddenly the story changes. You didn't lose the promotion. You stepped aside so the team could shine. You didn't fail in negotiations. You protected the partnership's integrity. You didn't get rejected in love. You sacrifice the relationship so they could grow. The facts stay the same, but the meaning flips in your favor. This works because humans crave stories, and they especially admire sacrifice. People respect those who suffer for something bigger. By telling your failure as a story of principle, you stop others from mocking you and instead inspire them. You look like someone who plays a deeper game, someone willing to bleed for vision, for loyalty, for honor. Whether or not that's true doesn't matter. What matters is perception, and perception is everything. Reframing failure also protects your power. Instead of looking weak, you look strategic. Instead of being dismissed, you're remembered. People forgive losses, but worship sacrifices. That's why every stumble you face should be cloaked in purpose. Never admit to being defeated. Show them you gave something up, not because you had to, but because you chose to. That's how you stay untouchable even when you fall. Build dependency, not loyalty. Most people think power comes from loyalty. They want to be liked, respected, admired. They chase loyalty because it feels safe. But loyalty is fragile. It shifts with moods, it cracks under pressure, and it disappears when someone feels betrayed. Dependency, on the other hand, is solid. If someone depends on you, if their work, comfort, or success collapses without you, they cannot walk away, even if they want to. That is real control. Loyalty is emotional. Dependency is structural. You build it by quietly weaving yourself into someone's life in ways they can't replace. Give them something rare, a skill, access, insight, protection, or opportunities they wouldn't get without you. Help them rise, but make sure they can't rise without you. Over time, they stop seeing you as optional and start seeing you as necessary. That's the moment you become indispensable. Think about it. A loyal friend might betray you if they feel hurt. A loyal employee might quit if they get a better offer. But a dependent one? They hesitate. They stay even if they're angry, even if they envy you, because they know leaving means losing too much. That is power stronger than friendship, stronger than fear, stronger than love. The secret is subtlety. You don't announce that they need you. You don't remind them. You let them realize it themselves over time, through experience. And once they know their survival, success, or happiness is tied to you, they won't abandon you. They can't. Because dependency is a chain they forge themselves, link by link, until it locked around them completely. Never fight battles that yield. No spoils. The easiest way to waste your energy is to fight battles that give you nothing in return. Most people jump into arguments, conflicts, or competitions just to prove they're right, to defend their pride, or to look strong. But here's the truth. Being right doesn't always mean being powerful. Winning a fight that brings you no resources, no advantage, and no leverage is just a loud way of losing time. The powerful understand this. They know that every fight is an investment, and like any investment, you must ask, what will I gain if I win? If the answer is only ego, recognition, or bragging rights, the battle is a trap. Because the moment you let pride decide for you, you are no longer strategic. You are emotional. And emotional players always lose to disciplined ones. Instead, the wise choose their battles with precision. They don't respond to every insult. They don't chase every critic, and they don't jump into every rivalry. They stay silent until a fight offers something real. Access to new ground, control over a resource, loyalty from key people, or a shift in power. That's when they strike, and when they do, it's surgical and final. So remember, not all fights are worth fighting. In fact, most are bait. Let others waste their strength proving themselves in meaningless wars while you conserve yours for the moment that changes everything. The true mark of power isn't how often you win, it's how rarely you need to fight at all. Let others win. You win influence. Most people argue because they want to be right. They crave the satisfaction of having the last word, of proving themselves smarter, sharper, or stronger in the moment. But influence doesn't come from arguments. Influence comes from what people believe after the argument is over. And here's the twist. People rarely change their minds because you beat them in debate. They change their minds when they feel safe, respected, and listened to. That's why letting others win is often the smartest move. When you nod, smile, and let them walk away thinking they convinced you, their guard drops. They feel proud, superior, and at ease. But here's the secret. In that softness, their mind is more open to your ideas than if you had crushed them publicly. You planted seeds during the conversation, and those seeds grow after the ego has calmed down. Think about it. If you embarrass someone by proving them wrong, they'll resist you forever. But if you let them shine, they'll remember how good they felt around you. That memory makes them more likely to follow you in the long run. You sacrifice the small victory, the argument, to win the bigger prize, their influence, their trust, and their willingness to see things your way later. So don't chase shallow wins. Let them take the spotlight. Let them feel like the hero of the conversation. Influence isn't loud. Influence is quiet, patient, and invisible. You don't need to win the argument. You need to win the person. Profit from crisis. Most people panic when crisis strikes. They freeze, collapse, or waste time blaming others. But crisis doesn't destroy everyone. For a few, it creates openings that were never possible before. That's because crisis is the great reset. It breaks systems, exposes weaknesses, and strips away illusions. In the chaos, there is always opportunity. The powerful know this. They don't cause the storm, but they prepare for it. And when it comes, they act while everyone else is trembling. While others scramble to explain what went wrong, the calm one steps in to offer solutions. While others cling to the old order, the strategic one builds a new one. While others are too busy protecting themselves, the bold one quietly claims new ground. Crisis gives you leverage because people are desperate. They want safety, clarity, and leadership. If you can give them even the illusion of control, they'll follow you anywhere. In that moment, loyalty is cheap. Influence is wide open, and the person who seems steady in the storm becomes the anchor everyone clings to. So, instead of fearing crisis, prepare to profit from it. Train yourself to stay calm when others lose control. Position yourself to offer solutions when others are drowning in problems. Be the voice, the hand, the presence that feels unshakable. Because in those moments of panic, people will give you anything: trust, loyalty, resources, just to feel safe. And when the storm clears, you'll find yourself standing in a position you never could have reached in calm weather. Reveal just enough to seem honest. Total honesty is rare, and complete honesty is often dangerous. If you reveal everything about yourself, your plans, your weaknesses, your true feelings, you give people weapons to use against you. On the other hand, if you reveal nothing at all, people grow suspicious. They start to wonder what you're hiding, and that suspicion becomes a weakness. The secret, then, is balance. Reveal just enough. Show a little vulnerability. Share a small truth. Admit to a minor mistake. That small dose of honesty makes people believe they've seen the real you, even when they haven't. This works because people crave authenticity. They want to believe they've broken through your mask. If you give them a carefully chosen piece of truth, they'll feel closer to you, they'll lower their guard, and they'll stop digging deeper. They think they've seen your soul, but in reality, you've only shown them a safe fragment, one that carries no risk. Maybe you admit to being nervous about public speaking, or you share a failure that you've already overcome. It sounds personal, it feels real, but it doesn't cost you anything. By using selective honesty, you control the narrative. You build trust without exposing your core. People will defend you because they believe you're genuine. They'll share their own secrets because they think you've shared yours. And while they open up, you stay protected. Never give away your true strategy or your deepest flaws. Give them a glimpse, not the whole picture. Because once people believe they know the real you, they stop looking for the truth. And that's when you're safest. Control the tone, not the words. Most people obsess over words. They argue over exact phrases, over who said what, over the details of language. But words are only the surface. What really shapes people's emotions, what really controls a conversation, is tone. Your tone, the pace, the rhythm, the silence, the volume, decides how people feel about what's being said, and feelings matter more than facts. Think about it. A simple sentence can inspire or destroy depending on how it's delivered. "We need to talk," said calmly feels different than the same phrase shouted in anger. A pause before responding can make you seem wise. A smile during a disagreement can make you look untouchable. By controlling tone, you control the emotional atmosphere of the room. And once you control emotions, you control decisions. This is why the most powerful leaders don't always speak the most. They master tone. They slow down when they want people to lean in. They lower their voice to create tension. They go silent to make others nervous. They laugh softly to break tension and regain control. Meanwhile, others may throw out long arguments, but the one who shapes the mood is the one everyone follows. So stop worrying about having the perfect words. Focus on how you deliver them. Speak less, pause more, use silence like a weapon. If people walk away remembering how you made them feel, rather than what you actually said, you've already won. Words can be challenged, tone cannot. Be the first to redefine the narrative. When something goes wrong, a failure, a scandal, a loss, the event itself isn't what decides your future. What really matters is the story people tell about it. And here's the key. The first person to frame the story often owns the truth, even if it's not the full truth. If you wait for others to define what happened, you lose control. But if you speak first, with confidence and clarity, you become the author of the narrative. This is why powerful people don't panic when they fail. They pivot. They take control of the explanation before anyone else can. If they lose a deal, they say it was a strategic sacrifice. If they're removed from a position, they call it a noble step aside. If a plan collapses, they reframe it as a bold experiment or a necessary pivot. People are desperate for meaning during chaos, and they will cling to the first story that makes them feel secure. If you give them that story, they will defend it, even against better evidence later. Narratives are sticky. Once people accept one, they rarely change their minds. That's why you can't afford silence. If you don't define the meaning of your actions, someone else will. And when they do, you're trapped in their story. But if you move first, you can cast yourself as the visionary, the strategist, or even the martyr, whatever role protects your power. Remember, in power, perception is stronger than fact. You don't need to change reality. You only need to shape how people interpret it. And the one who defines the narrative first almost always defines the future. Force choices between bad options. One of the most powerful strategies in influence is giving people the illusion of choice while secretly controlling every outcome. You don't tell them what to do. Instead, you design the options so carefully that no matter what they pick, you win. This is how you guide people without them realizing they've been guided. Think about how people behave when under pressure. When they feel urgency, when they feel cornered, when they feel the weight of a decision, they crave resolution. They want to escape uncertainty, even if it means choosing between two bad options. And this is where you step in. You don't give them a way out. You give them options that look different on the surface, but both serve your goal. For example, you might say, "We can either launch now and face the risk, or wait and lose our advantage." Either way, their decision feeds your strategy. The brilliance of this method is that people will fight each other over which bad option is less painful. They'll argue, debate, and rationalize endlessly, thinking they're making their own choice. But behind the curtain, you already know the ending. You've written the script. And because they believe they had a say, they'll commit to it more deeply than if you had simply told them what to do. This works in negotiations, leadership, even personal relationships. The key is subtlety. Don't make the trap obvious. Dress one option as safer, one as riskier, but ensure both lead to your advantage. The more people feel torn, the less they notice the real trick, that the game was already rigged before it began. Insult, through questions, not statements. Direct insults are obvious. They create enemies immediately. If you call someone a fool, they'll fight back, defend themselves, and harden their position against you. But when you frame an insult as a question, it slides under their guard. It doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like reflection. And in trying to answer, they reveal their own weakness. For example, instead of saying, "That was a terrible idea," you ask, "Do you really think that's the best approach?" Instead of saying, "You don't know what you're doing," you ask, "Is this how you normally handle these situations?" These questions sting because they plant doubt. They don't accuse directly. They let the target fill in the insult themselves, and the mind always makes the wound sharper than words ever could. This strategy is powerful because it also protects your image. To everyone else in the room, you sound calm, curious, even reasonable. You're not attacking, you're just asking. But the person you targeted feels the blade under the velvet. They feel exposed, judged, humiliated, without you ever raising your voice. And if they overreact, if they snap or get defensive, you look even more composed while they look unstable. Questions also linger. Long after the moment passes, the person replays your words in their head. Was that idea really weak? Did I embarrass myself? You've created a shadow of doubt that eats away at them over time. That's why insulting through questions is so effective. It doesn't just wound in the moment, it keeps wounding quietly, again and again. Give them a role in your myth. People don't just follow leaders, they follow stories. And the most powerful stories are the ones where people see themselves inside the narrative. If you want deep loyalty, influence, and even admiration, don't just tell people about your journey. Give them a role in your myth. Make them feel like they were part of your rise. This works because humans crave meaning. We want to believe we matter in someone else's story. If you can make someone feel like their advice shaped you, their support carried you, or even their opposition sharpened you, they'll cling to that role. They'll defend your reputation because it validates their importance. Your victories become their victories. Your legend becomes partly theirs. For example, you might say to a colleague, "I couldn't have made it through that project without your support," or to a critic, "Honestly, your challenge pushed me to get sharper." Suddenly, both ally and enemy feel like they shaped your story, and because of that, they will carry your myth forward to others, repeating it, spreading it, protecting it. The myth is always more powerful than the facts. The facts say you worked hard, made choices, and achieved success. But the myth says you had destiny, struggle, triumph, and witnesses who can swear they were there. And when people believe they were part of that story, they stop questioning it. They become evangelists of your legend. So don't just rise alone. Pull people into your myth. Give them roles, big or small. Make them feel chosen. Because when they believe your story is partly theirs, they will protect it like their own. Change personas before they decay. Every persona has an expiration date. The brilliant newcomer, the fearless rebel, the wise strategist. All of these identities carry power for a time. But once people grow too familiar with one version of you, the magic fades. They stop being curious. They start predicting you. What once seemed mysterious now feels repetitive. And when familiarity sets in, admiration turns into boredom, and boredom turns into dismissal. The powerful understand this truth. They never let one version of themselves grow stale. Before the audience notices the cracks, they change. They reinvent themselves deliberately, not out of desperation, but as a strategy. One day they are bold and aggressive, the next day measured and calm. One season they appear soft and compassionate, the next sharp and unyielding. This unpredictability forces others to constantly reevaluate them. The trick is to change before you're forced to. If you cling to one image for too long, people will begin to control it, to define it, to limit you by it. But if you shed your skin before they can box you in, you remain the one in charge. You decide how they see you. You control the narrative of your evolution. Think of famous leaders, entertainers, or public figures who managed to stay relevant for decades. It wasn't because they never changed. It was because they changed often and intentionally. Every new version made people pay attention again, and each transformation made them impossible to fully pin down. So remember, consistency makes you safe, but reinvention makes you powerful. Don't wait until the old mask breaks. Replace it with a new one before they even realize the old one was wearing thin. Sell hope, not reality. Reality is heavy. It's full of limitations, setbacks, and uncomfortable truths. People say they want honesty, but in truth what they crave most is hope. They want to believe tomorrow can be brighter than today. They want someone who paints a picture of a better future, even if it's not fully realistic. That is why hope, not reality, is the ultimate product of power. The most influential figures in history didn't rise by telling people the raw truth. They rose by giving people a dream to believe in. Leaders, revolutionaries, prophets, and even marketers all understood this. They spoke in visions, not facts. They promised transformation, not just survival. And because people longed for escape from the weight of reality, they followed. Hope doesn't need to be exact. It doesn't need to come with a timeline or precise details. It only needs to feel uplifting, possible, and larger than life. People don't rally behind spreadsheets or statistics. They rally behind belief. They give money, loyalty, and even their lives for a vision of something better. This doesn't mean you lie. It means you focus on potential rather than limitation. Instead of saying, "This will be hard," you say, "This will be worth it." Instead of describing the present, you describe the future. And when people feel inspired, they forgive your failures and delays because hope kept them alive longer than truth ever could. So if you want influence, don't sell the world as it is. Sell the world as it could be, because reality weighs people down, but hope makes them move. Foster rivalries beneath you. One of the easiest ways to stay in control is to make sure those beneath you are never fully united. Division keeps you safe. Rivalry keeps you strong. When people are busy competing with each other for approval, recognition, or position, they forget to question you. They waste their energy fighting sideways, while you quietly sit above the battle, untouched. The art of fostering rivalry isn't about starting chaos. It's about planting small sparks of comparison and competition. You don't need to invent the conflict. You just need to feed it. Praise one person slightly more than another. Give one group just a little more access or recognition. Compliment someone in a way that sounds like a challenge to someone else. Before long, they're measuring themselves against each other instead of measuring you. This tactic makes you look neutral and fair. You can stand above the fray, pretending to be the peacekeeper, while secretly benefiting from the friction. Their rivalry makes them reveal secrets, expose weaknesses, and work harder to prove themselves. And while they're focused on outshining each other, you become the stabilizer, the authority they both turn to for validation. The danger in power is unity below you. If the people beneath you ever join forces, they might rise against you. Rivalry ensures that never happens. They stay suspicious of one another, always trying to win your favor. And in that endless competition, they cement your position as the one who can't be challenged. So don't crush every rivalry. Create them, manage them, keep them alive just enough so they distract from you. Because when everyone is busy fighting sideways, no one is looking up. Use tradition as camouflage for change. People fear change more than almost anything else. Even if the old ways are broken, they cling to them because they feel safe, familiar, and comforting. If you announce that you are bringing radical change, expect resistance, fear, and even rebellion. But if you dress your change in the clothing of tradition, people welcome it with open arms. They think they are preserving something old, when in reality, they are stepping into something new. The secret is simple. Don't fight tradition, inhabit it. Speak its language. Wrap your innovation in the words and symbols people already trust. If you are launching something new, frame it as a return to our roots or a revival of original values. Instead of saying, we're changing everything, say, we are restoring what was always meant to be. People nod to tradition because it feels like home, even when they're walking into a completely different house. This tactic has been used by leaders, institutions, and empires for centuries. Revolutions often present themselves as restorations. Innovators describe themselves as guardians of old wisdom. The robes, the rituals, the familiar words, all remain the same, but underneath, the structure shifts quietly. By the time people realize the new system has replaced the old, it is too late. They are already part of it. This is not deception for its own sake. It is strategy. If you want to change the system, don't announce it. Move beneath the radar of resistance. Wrap the future in the comfort of the past. Make people feel they are protecting tradition, even while they are unknowingly helping you dismantle it. Because no one guards a door when they believe it's already theirs.
Make generosity. Feel like a favor owed. Giving is easy. Anyone can hand out money, advice, or kindness. But real power lies not in what you give, it lies in how you give it. If generosity feels casual or careless, people take it for granted. They say thank you, they smile, and they forget. But if generosity is delivered with precision, timing, and quiet weight, it transforms into something far more valuable: obligation. Here's the trick. Help people in moments when they are desperate, cornered, or overlooked by others. Step in with exactly what they need in a way no one else can. Do it calmly, without asking for recognition. Then pull back. Let the silence of the gesture linger. The less you ask for in return, the heavier the debt they feel. Gratitude fades quickly, but obligation lingers in the gut. It makes people hesitate before crossing you. It makes them lean in your direction when decisions are made. It keeps them loyal, not because they love you, but because they cannot bear the weight of feeling indebted. This is how you create invisible chains. When you give in a way that feels unforgettable. Frame it as a quiet sacrifice, your time, your risk, your reputation. Don't brag. Let someone else mention it, or let the person realize it on their own. That realization becomes a cage they build for themselves. They replay the moment again and again, and each time the debt feels heavier. Remember, applause for generosity is worthless. Influence from obligation is priceless. Don't give for attention, give for leverage. Because one carefully placed act of generosity can control someone's choices for years, while 100 casual gifts will vanish from memory tomorrow. Kill rumors with overexposure. Rumors are parasites. They thrive in shadows, feeding on silence and mystery. The less people know about you, the more they invent. And once a rumor takes hold, denying it outright can make it look even more true. That's why most people mishandle whispers. They panic, they hide, they protest too loudly. But the powerful use a different strategy. They kill rumors by overexposing them. When you flood a rumor with too much light, it loses its bite. You talk about it openly, even casually, until it becomes boring. You repeat it yourself, twist it, exaggerate it, laugh at it, turn it into trivia. What was once whispered in dark corners now becomes small talk at the dinner table. And once a rumor is everywhere, it no longer feels dangerous. It feels ordinary. People stop caring. They stop believing. They move on. Think of it this way. Rumors are like fires. If you suffocate them with silence, they burn hotter. If you douse them with denial, people assume there's smoke for a reason. But if you throw so much wood on the fire that it becomes ridiculous, people stop fearing it. They laugh, they shrug, and the flame dies from exhaustion. This tactic doesn't mean confessing or defending yourself. It means reframing the rumor so it loses its sting. You can even turn it into a weapon, mock it so often that it makes your enemies look foolish for spreading it. Because the more you joke, the less they can threaten you. In the end, people won't remember the original whisper. They'll remember your smirk, your confidence, your ability to turn poison into smoke. When blamed, blame ambiguity. Blame is one of the oldest weapons in the game of power. When something goes wrong, people want a target. They want someone to point at so they can feel in control again. If you let yourself become that target, you lose not just credibility, but momentum. But here's the trick. Don't fight blame directly. Redirect it into ambiguity. What does this mean? It means never letting blame stick to you as a solid fact. If someone accuses you of failure, don't answer with yes or no. Answer with smoke. Point to unclear circumstances. Point to outside forces that no one can measure. Suggest that the problem came from communication gaps, misunderstandings, or unexpected variables. These words are fog. They sound professional, they sound reasonable, but they carry no clear meaning. They give people the illusion of explanation without giving them anything concrete. Think about history's great leaders who survived disasters. They rarely admitted, "This was my fault." Instead, they spoke about the complexity of the situation, the layers of information, the unpredictable timing. By framing blame inside complexity, they transformed what could have been a direct hit into a vague cloud where no one could find the center. People want to assign blame quickly, but ambiguity slows them down. It makes them question, hesitate, and finally give up. The beauty of this strategy is that it doesn't make you look defensive. In fact, it makes you look calm, thoughtful, even wise. Instead of shouting your innocence, you appear to explain patiently why the issue is too complicated to assign to one person. And when people walk away from that conversation, they don't remember the facts. They remember the feeling that it was nobody's fault, really. So when blame comes your way, don't fight it head on. Wrap it in mist. Give people too many possible explanations. Feed vanity to drown reason. Reason is strong, but vanity is stronger. People like to believe they make decisions logically, carefully weighing the facts. But in truth, most decisions are shaped by ego. If you learn to feed someone's vanity, you gain a lever far more powerful than reason. Compliments, recognition, and flattery don't just make people smile. They make them blind. This is why the sharpest manipulators don't argue facts. They target pride. They say things like, "I know someone with your intelligence will see the truth in this," or "You're the only one I trust with this level of responsibility." These statements don't appeal to reason. They appeal to self-image. Once someone feels their ego has been stroked, they relax. They stop looking for flaws in your proposal because questioning you would mean questioning the compliment they just accepted. Vanity works because it creates dependency. The more you feed it, the more they crave it. They start to seek you out, not for the truth, but for the way you make them feel. Over time, they become addicted to your validation. That addiction drowns their ability to resist you. They'll say yes to things they should have questioned. They'll defend you when they shouldn't. All because you made them feel seen, admired, special. Of course, you must be careful. Empty flattery sounds false and can backfire. The key is tailoring compliments so they feel specific, even unique. Don't say, "You're smart." Say, "You always see angles others miss." Don't say, "You're talented." Say, "Only someone with your rare instinct could have solved that problem." Precision makes the flattery feel true, even if it's not. In the end, vanity is the leash that even the strongest minds will follow. Feed it slowly, strategically, and you'll find reason drowns quietly beneath the waves of their own pride. Always ask, why now? Timing is everything. A good idea delivered at the wrong moment dies. A bad idea delivered when people are desperate thrives. This is why the powerful always ask a simple but critical question. Why now? Because behind every action, every request, every demand, there is always a hidden timing. If you can uncover the reason for the timing, you uncover the real motive. When someone approaches you with urgency, pause and ask yourself, why now? Why today, not yesterday? Why the rush? Why the pressure? Often, urgency is a disguise. People create artificial deadlines to make you act before you've had time to think. By asking, why now? Even silently, you break the spell. You give yourself space to see whether the pressure is real or manufactured. This question is also a weapon you can use. When others are eager, when they want to act immediately, your calm question forces them to explain themselves, and in explaining, they reveal weakness. Maybe their resources are running out. Maybe their confidence is shaky. Maybe they fear that if you delay, you'll discover something they don't want you to see. By questioning timing, you shine a light on urgency, and urgency is often where desperation hides. Great strategists rarely rush. They move when the moment is ripe, not when others demand it. They know that patience can turn a weak hand into a strong one. By asking, why now? Again and again, you stop yourself from being dragged into someone else's timeline. Instead, you decide when and how to act. So adopt this as a habit. Every time you face pressure, whisper to yourself, why now? That single question will save you from countless traps, expose hidden motives, and put you back in control of the clock. And in the game of power, the one who controls the clock controls the outcome. Give the impression of spontaneity. Nothing captures attention like the appearance of spontaneity. When your actions seem carefully planned, people grow cautious. They wonder about your motives. They prepare defenses. They start calculating against you. But when your moves feel sudden, natural, or even accidental, they disarm people. They don't see strategy, they see impulse. And in that gap of surprise, you can strike before anyone realizes what has happened. The irony is that true spontaneity is often chaos, and chaos rarely creates lasting power. The real secret is preparation disguised as impulse. You plan in silence, you practice in private, you rehearse your words, and you arrange the pieces. Then, when the moment comes, you act as if it just occurred to you. To the world, it looks like inspiration. To you, it's execution. This illusion works in every field. A speaker who seems to suddenly tell a powerful story usually memorized it weeks before. A leader who appears to make a bold decision on the spot has already run through the calculations in secret. Even in personal relationships, appearing spontaneous makes you seem genuine and exciting while hiding the fact that your timing is deliberate. Spontaneity also creates energy. People love the feeling of being swept into something unexpected. It feels alive. If you can make others believe they are part of an unscripted moment, they will bond with you more deeply. They won't question whether it was planned because the emotional impact feels real. So, don't just act strategically while looking effortless. Plan meticulously, then throw away the blueprint in public. Let them think lightning struck, when in reality, you built the storm cloud weeks ago. Let them see you suffer for their sake. Sacrifice is one of the most powerful performances in the theater of influence. People may admire strength, but they love suffering. Why? Because suffering convinces them of sincerity. It makes them believe you are invested in them, in the cause, in the relationship. And when they believe your pain benefits them, their loyalty deepens in ways logic alone can never achieve. This doesn't mean destroying yourself. It means choosing the suffering they can see while protecting the suffering you hide. For example, you might stay late at work for the team, let yourself be criticized for the good of the group, or give up a visible privilege so others can shine. Each of these is a calculated performance of sacrifice. To you, the cost is minor. To them, the meaning is massive. The key is visibility. Pain that no one sees earns you nothing. But pain witnessed, even small inconveniences, becomes powerful currency. People remember that you bled for them, that you gave up for them, that you endured for them, and the memory binds them. It makes them feel guilty for doubting you, ashamed of criticizing you, and eager to repay the debt of your supposed suffering. History is full of figures who built loyalty not by showcasing their victories, but their scars. Leaders who showed exhaustion, fighters who displayed wounds, workers who told stories of sleepless nights. The image of sacrifice inspires people far more than the reality of comfort. So learn this: don't hide all your struggles. Select a few, display them carefully, and let others believe your pain was for their sake. Because once people see you suffer for them, they will suffer for you in return. Poison praise with implications. Praise is sweet, but too much sweetness makes people careless. If you flatter someone openly, they relax. They stop questioning themselves. They bask in the warmth of approval. And while flattery can be useful, it's not always the most strategic tool. A sharper weapon is praise laced with poison, compliments that lift people up while planting doubt at the same time. For example, you might say, "You handled that surprisingly well for someone so new." Or, "That was a clever idea. I wouldn't have expected it from you." On the surface, these are compliments, but hidden within them is an implication. You weren't expected to succeed. You don't normally perform this well, or others are still doubting you. The praise builds them up just enough to keep them smiling while quietly unsettling them. This tactic works because people replay compliments in their heads, and when the praise is poisoned, they replay the sting too. They wonder, am I really competent? Do they secretly think less of me? Did I only get lucky? Instead of feeling secure, they feel a subtle insecurity, and that insecurity makes them easier to influence. They work harder to prove themselves. They seek your approval more desperately, and they stay slightly unbalanced in your presence. Poisoned praise also gives you deniability. If confronted, you can insist you are being kind. "I was just complimenting you," you can say with innocent eyes. The victim looks oversensitive for noticing the insult. Meanwhile, the seed you planted grows quietly inside them, shaping their behavior without leaving your fingerprints. So don't just flatter to lift people up. Flatter in ways that leave shadows. Praise that uplifts and unsettles at the same time is the kind of praise that keeps you in control long after the words are spoken. Announce fake limits to seem safe. People fear ambition that feels endless. If you look like someone who always wants more, who will never be satisfied, who will take and take without stopping, you trigger alarm. Others begin to see you as a threat, and they'll unite to stop you. That's why it's dangerous to look limitless. The secret is to set boundaries, but fake ones. Announce limits that look firm, while quietly pushing beyond them when no one is watching. For example, a leader might say, "I don't want power beyond this office. I'm only here to serve." A business owner might say, "We're not interested in dominating the whole industry, just our small corner." These statements lower suspicion. They calm opponents. They make you look reasonable, even humble. But behind the curtain, you continue expanding, planning, moving pieces forward. By the time anyone realizes your reach has gone beyond the limit you promised, it's too late. Fake limits are shields. They convince allies that you're safe to trust. They convince enemies that you're not worth fearing. And they convince the public that you're modest. Meanwhile, those limits are only temporary illusions, masks you wear until you've crossed the line. Once you pass the fake boundary, you simply invent another. History is full of figures who use this tactic. They swore they didn't want the throne until it was offered. They insisted they had no interest in expansion until the land was already theirs. Announcing limits buys you time. It lulls suspicion, and it makes your ambition look less like hunger and more like destiny. So remember, unchecked ambition invites enemies. Masked ambition invites opportunity. Always draw lines in the sand, but draw them where you know the tide will soon wash them away. Empower the paranoid to keep peace. Paranoia is usually seen as weakness. The paranoid are jumpy, suspicious, and restless. But here's the truth. Every group, every system, every workplace has paranoid people. And instead of silencing them, the wise leader empowers them. Because paranoia, when managed, is one of the best tools for maintaining peace. Why? Because paranoid people are always watching. They notice threats others ignore. They obsess over details others overlook. They spread warnings, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes accurate, that make everyone more cautious. Left unchecked, they cause chaos. But if you empower them carefully, they become watchdogs who protect the order. The trick is not to dismiss their fears, but to redirect them. Give them a role, a task, or an outlet where their suspicion looks like vigilance. Make them the safety officer, the quality checker, the guardian of standards. They'll pour their energy into guarding the system instead of tearing it down. And while they believe they're protecting themselves, they're really protecting your control. This works on a psychological level too. The The paranoid crave acknowledgement. If you validate their concerns, even in small ways, they'll feel seen and loyal. They'll stop turning their suspicion towards you and start pointing it outward. They'll defend your authority, not question it, because you gave them purpose. In the end, peace is rarely built by silencing the loudest voices. It's built by turning those voices into instruments of order. Empower the paranoid, not because they're always right, but because their fear can be weaponized to keep everyone else in line. Appear to obey. While subverting, sometimes the smartest way to resist power is not to oppose it, but to appear to submit. Open rebellion draws fire. It makes you visible, it makes you a target, and it forces those above you to crush you just to protect their own authority. But quiet subversion, hidden inside obedience, is much harder to detect, and therefore much harder to stop. This is the art of bowing with your head while sharpening your knife. You say yes when asked, but you delay execution. You follow orders on the surface, but twist them subtly in practice. You act as though you're loyal, but behind the mask you're bending the system toward your own advantage. And the beauty of this tactic is that those in power rarely notice until the damage is already done. Appearing obedient earns you trust. It gives you access to spaces rebels are denied. It lets you collect information, build relationships, and study weaknesses. All the while, your real moves remain hidden. You don't challenge the throne, you sit close to it, learning how to dismantle it piece by piece. History has shown this tactic again and again. Courtiers, servants, employees, even entire nations have survived oppression by pretending to obey while quietly undermining authority. Outward loyalty gave them cover. Hidden resistance gave them survival. So when you face authority that cannot be confronted directly, don't waste yourself on loud defiance. Bend, smile, obey, but only on the surface. Beneath the mask, keep your own design alive, because the most dangerous traitor is not the one who shouts rebellion, but the one who bows deeply with a dagger hidden in their sleeve. Use humor to neutralize threats. Humor is often dismissed as lighthearted, harmless, or even weak compared to serious power moves. But in reality, humor is one of the most subtle and effective weapons you can use. It softens blows, diffuses tension, and disarms enemies in ways anger or logic never could. When someone tries to attack you, a sharp joke can take the sting out of their strike. Suddenly the room is laughing with you, not at you, and the attacker looks like the fool. Humor works because it flips the emotional balance. Anger creates heaviness, but laughter creates release. People naturally side with the one who makes them feel good. If someone insults you and you respond with anger, you look shaken. But if you respond with humor, you look untouchable, almost above the attack. You've shown that their words can't pierce you, that you can bend them into entertainment instead. Great leaders, entertainers, and negotiators know this. When cornered, they don't panic. They smile, crack a line, and shift the room's energy. Suddenly, the threat feels smaller, less serious, less sharp. Even enemies hesitate to push harder when their blows are being turned into comedy. Humor robs them of momentum. Of course, this doesn't mean clowning. The wrong kind of humor makes you look weak or desperate. The right kind is controlled, sharp, and deliberate. Sometimes it's self-deprecating, showing you're confident enough to laugh at yourself. Other times, it's subtle mockery, framed so gently the target can't respond without looking humorless. Either way, you stay above the tension, never dragged into the mud, so don't underestimate humor. Used wisely, it's not softness. It's a shield that makes you untouchable and a blade that cuts without blood. Let others fear offending you. Fear is not only created by threats, it's also created by uncertainty. If people are unsure about how you'll react, they tread carefully around you. That's why one of the simplest forms of power is letting others fear offending you, even when you've given them no direct reason to believe you'd punish them. The key is unpredictability. You don't lash out constantly. That makes you look unstable. Instead, you stay calm most of the time, but when someone crosses a certain invisible line, you respond sharply. You don't need to scream or throw fits. A cold silence, a withdrawn favor, or a sudden shift in tone is often enough. People notice. They remember. And soon, they begin watching themselves, afraid of tripping that line again. This is how a reputation forms, not because you tell people, "Don't offend me," but because you condition them. They start second-guessing their words, measuring their actions, avoiding certain jokes or criticisms around you. Without lifting a finger, you create an atmosphere of caution. They walk lightly, unsure of what might set you off. The benefit of this is enormous. People who fear offending you will not just avoid attacking you, They'll overcompensate with respect. They'll speak more carefully, treat you more politely, and sometimes even flatter you to stay on your good side. You don't have to demand respect when others are busy giving it to you out of fear of losing it. So don't aim to be universally liked. Aim to be respected with a shadow of fear. Because when people fear offending you, they police themselves for you. And that is the most effortless kind of control. Win slow to dominate long. The fastest victories are often the most fragile. Yes, crushing someone quickly feels satisfying, but fast wins rarely build lasting power. They spark resentment, draw attention, and create enemies who dream of revenge. Slow victories, on the other hand, seem natural. They unfold over time like tides wearing down a stone. And when they're complete, there's no one left to resist, because resistance died long before the finish. Winning slowly means focusing on the long game instead of chasing immediate glory. Instead of humiliating an opponent, you give them small losses that don't feel fatal. Instead of grabbing power all at once, you collect it piece by piece until it feels inevitable. The people watching don't see conquest. They see evolution. They say it was bound to happen instead of they forced it. That difference makes your dominance far harder to challenge. Think of great empires, long-lasting businesses, or even personal relationships. The ones that endure are rarely built overnight. They are built steadily, methodically, one brick at a time. Each step looks modest in the moment, but together, they form something unshakable. By the time rivals realize what's happening, they're standing in a structure too large to knock down. Slow wins also give you time to adapt. You can adjust your moves, test your influence, and eliminate weaknesses as you rise. Quick victories may overlook cracks that become fatal later. Slow victories seal those cracks before they spread. So, resist the temptation to sprint. Sprinting burns energy, burns bridges, and burns out your future. Walk instead. Let your victories accumulate like drops filling a bucket. Because when you win slowly, you don't just dominate the moment, you dominate the decades. Take the fall for what made you rise. Every rise to power creates shadows, controversies, mistakes, or sacrifices that others will eventually point to. If you ignore them, they grow. If you deny them, you look defensive. But if you step forward and take the fall for them, you transform weakness into strength. You frame the cost of your rise not as corruption or failure, but as necessity. This doesn't mean confessing everything or falling on your sword completely. It means carefully choosing which sins to own, then presenting them as the price of progress. For example, you might say, "Yes, I pushed too hard, but I did it because I believed in the mission." Or, "Yes, people got hurt, but without that risk, none of us would be where we are today." You admit fault in a way that reinforces your power, not diminishes it. The beauty of this tactic is that it disarms critics. When you admit something before they can accuse you, they lose their weapon. People admire honesty, even when it's partial, and they forgive far more when you control the narrative. By painting your flaws as sacrifices, you look human, relatable, even heroic. Instead of asking, "How could they do this?" people start saying, "I guess someone had to." History is full of figures who survived scandals by leaning into them instead of running from them. They didn't deny, they reframed. They turned accusations into stories of burden, struggle, and hard choices. And often they emerged stronger than before, because people respected their willingness to carry the blame. So when your rise leaves marks, and it will, don't hide them. Own them, bend them, present them as the cost of greatness. Because in the end, people don't follow saints. They follow those who suffered for success and had the strength to say, "Yes, I took the hit, but I did it for all of us." Avoid gratitude, engineer obligation. Gratitude is soft. It's warm, fleeting, and unreliable. When you do someone a favor, they may thank you sincerely, but that thankfulness fades quickly. Gratitude can vanish overnight if emotions change or if someone convinces them you didn't deserve their loyalty. Obligation, however, is heavy. It weighs on people. It lingers in their minds, shaping their choices long after gratitude would have disappeared. The trick is in how you give. If your help feels casual, people treat it lightly. But if it feels costly, if it looks like a sacrifice on your part, they feel indebted. They carry that weight. They hesitate to betray you because betraying you means betraying themselves. They avoid crossing you because they still owe you. That is obligation, and obligation lasts. One way to create this is by giving help at the exact moment of desperation. When someone is cornered, vulnerable, or ignored by others, you step in. Your timing makes your act unforgettable. Another way is to make your help appear harder for you than it actually was. Frame it as a risk, an effort, or a burden, even if it cost you little. The perception of sacrifice is what creates the chain. Obligation doesn't just protect you, it controls behavior. People may resent feeling indebted, but that resentment often deepens their dependence. They'll try to repay you by doing what you want, even without being asked. They'll defend you publicly to balance the scales. They'll think twice before opposing you, because deep down, they know the debt has not been cleared. So don't settle for gratitude. It's cheap. Engineer obligation. Give in ways that tie people to you, not through affection, but through the weight of what they feel they owe. That's how you create bonds that are harder to break than chains of steel. Encourage mistakes you benefit from. Most leaders punish mistakes. They want obedience, precision, and flawless execution. But if you are strategic, you see mistakes not as problems, but as opportunities, especially when those mistakes benefit you. Instead of stamping them out, you quietly encourage them, letting people think they're acting freely while you reap the rewards. Imagine a rival who underestimates you and rushes ahead recklessly. Do you correct them? No. You let them stumble into the trap they created for themselves. Imagine an employee who makes errors that keep them dependent on your guidance. Do you scold them harshly? No. You guide them just enough to keep them loyal, while their mistakes strengthen your position as indispensable. This tactic works because people hate being corrected, but they rarely notice when their freedom is being managed. By letting them make certain mistakes, you let them feel independent while their errors tighten your control. Their failure becomes your leverage. Their overconfidence becomes your shield, and often their downfall becomes your ladder. Of course, you must be careful. Not every mistake should be allowed. Some can destroy you if left unchecked. The art is knowing which ones serve your plan. If a mistake leads to dependence, advantage, or distraction, it's useful. If it threatens your foundation, it must be stopped. Think of yourself as a gardener. You don't pull every weed. Some weeds protect the soil. Some keep pests distracted. The key is management, not destruction. Encourage mistakes that weaken your rivals, deepen your allies' dependence, or make you look stronger in comparison. Let people dig their own holes. Just be sure the ladder out of those holes leads directly back to you. Let them teach you to lower their guard. People love to teach. It feeds their ego. It makes them feel knowledgeable, wise, and in control. And when someone is teaching, they reveal themselves, what they value, what they fear, how they think. That's why one of the smartest strategies in influence is to let others believe they're teaching you, while in reality, they're handing you the keys to their weakness. When you ask questions, when you act curious, when you pretend to be the student, people open up. They explain their reasoning, they share their secrets, and they lower their guard. They don't see you as a rival, they see you as someone they're shaping, someone beneath them. And the moment someone believes you are beneath them, they stop defending themselves. They give you unfiltered access to their mind. This works in every field: business, politics, relationships. A rival will proudly explain their strategy if they think you admire them. A boss will reveal pressure points if they believe they're mentoring you. Even an enemy will brag about their methods if you make them feel like the wiser one. You learn everything while they feel flattered. The real trick is humility. You must act genuinely interested, nodding, agreeing, asking small follow-up questions. Don't challenge, don't argue, just listen. The more they talk, the more information they spill. Later, when you act on that knowledge, they won't even realize they armed you. So remember, teaching is exposure. Let others think they're the master while you quietly collect the lesson. Because the one who learns silently often walks away with the sharpest weapon. Cast doubt rather than prove guilt. Proving guilt is hard. It requires evidence, witnesses, logic, and airtight arguments. And even when you have proof, people resist it if it challenges what they want to believe. But planting doubt? That's much easier and often far more powerful. Doubt doesn't need proof. It only needs a whisper, a suggestion, a shadow cast in the right direction. When you accuse directly, you become responsible for the outcome. If you fail to prove your case, you look weak. But when you raise questions instead of accusations, you remain safe. Why was he always at those meetings? Why does she never explain her finances? These aren't claims. They're invitations for suspicion. And suspicion spreads faster than facts because it asks people to use their imagination. Doubt also lingers longer than proof. Proof can be disproved, but once doubt settles in, it's hard to erase. Even if someone is cleared of wrongdoing, people think maybe something was hidden.
Maybe they got away with it. A reputation stained by doubt rarely returns to pure. This tactic also works defensively. When someone tries to accuse you, don't waste energy proving innocence. Instead, redirect the conversation toward ambiguity. Ask questions that shift focus. Isn't it strange how this timing works? Why would I benefit from that? Doubt muddies the waters until no one can see clearly. And in murky water, guilt is impossible to pin down, so don't waste time trying to convict or acquit. Let others chase proof while you plant doubt, because suspicion is a poison that requires no evidence to kill. Act shocked. When your plans work, power often grows quietly, step by step, behind the scenes. If people see how intentional and calculated you are, they grow wary. They begin preparing defenses. But if you act surprised by your own success, if you play the role of someone lucky or blessed, you mask your strategy behind innocence. This is the art of pretending. You plan carefully, you anticipate outcomes, you set traps, but when it all unfolds as expected, you smile in disbelief and say, "I never thought it would work this well." To outsiders, this makes you look harmless, even charming. They underestimate you, thinking you stumbled into victory instead of engineering it. And underestimation is the best camouflage a strategist can have. Acting shocked also protects you from envy. People hate calculated dominance. It makes them feel manipulated. But luck they forgive. If they think you simply happened to be in the right place at the right time, they'll resent you less. They might even admire you for being chosen by fate. Even rivals relax when you act surprised. They don't see you as a threat because you look like someone still figuring things out. Meanwhile, you keep planning, keep maneuvering, keep winning, each time pretending it was a happy accident. By the time they realize the pattern, you're too far ahead to stop. So don't brag about foresight. Don't reveal the calculations behind your success. Wear the mask of astonishment, because nothing hides design better than the performance of luck. Be everywhere without being found. Power often comes from presence, but presence is a double-edged sword. If you're too visible, too available, people study you, track you, and eventually learn your patterns. Predictability is weakness, but if you can create the feeling that you are everywhere, while remaining physically elusive, you gain an aura that no one can pin down. This is the paradox of influence. You don't have to be in the room to be felt in the room. Maybe people keep hearing your name in conversations. Maybe your advice keeps resurfacing in decisions. Maybe your allies repeat your phrases, your style, your perspective, so much that others feel your influence even when you're not present. To them, you're everywhere. Yet, when they look around, you're not physically there, not easy to confront. This builds mystery, even fear. Think about legends. The most feared figures in history weren't the ones always on stage. They were the ones who seemed to appear suddenly, unpredictably, shaping events from the shadows. Rivals couldn't figure out where they were, but they felt them in every outcome. That's presence without exposure. The trick is in balance. If you vanish completely, people forget you. If you show up constantly, they track you. The sweet spot is selective visibility, leaving just enough trace to remind them you exist, but never enough for them to catch your whole form. You're the shadow in the corner of their eye, the whisper in a conversation, the influence behind someone else's words. When people think you're everywhere but can't find you, they stop looking for weaknesses. They stop asking where and start asking how much. And by then, your influence has already seeped into every corner. Mirror, then magnify their flaws. The fastest way to disarm someone is to hold up a mirror. When people see their own flaws reflected back at them, even subtly, it unsettles them. They start questioning themselves, doubting their judgment. But mirroring alone is only the first step. The real power comes when you take what they reveal and magnify it, quietly exaggerating their flaws until they begin to collapse under the weight of their own weaknesses. For example, if someone is arrogant, mirror their arrogance back to them. Treat them with the same overconfidence they show others. Then magnify it. Encourage their reckless pride, flatter their ego, push them into decisions where their arrogance will expose them. If someone is insecure, reflect that insecurity in small ways, then amplify it by asking subtle questions that make them doubt themselves even more. This technique works because most people are blind to their flaws. They think their weaknesses are invisible. When you mirror them, you force them to see a distorted version of themselves. When you magnify them, you turn those flaws into chains that hold them down.
All the while, you remain untouchable because you never attacked directly. They did the damage to themselves. The key is subtlety. You don't announce what you're doing. You reflect just enough for them to feel the sting, then let their own ego drive the rest. Over time, their flaws grow louder, more obvious, more damaging, until they can no longer hide them from others. Mirror, then magnify. Let them dig their own hole deeper, while you stand by as the one who merely agreed with what was already there. Be a rumor in powerful rooms. The most dangerous presence isn't physical, it's whispered. When people talk about you in rooms you've never entered, your influence multiplies. You become larger than life, a presence that moves without moving. The powerful understand this. Being physically present is useful, but being a rumor is far more effective. Rumors work because they spread faster than truth. They're sticky, emotional, and easy to repeat. When people hear your name attached to mystery, I heard they're behind this. I heard they knew before anyone else. I heard they're untouchable, they don't need proof. The suggestion alone shapes perception, and perception is power. The trick is not to start the rumor yourself. That makes it look fake. Instead, feed small pieces of information to the right people. Hint at things. Leave unfinished sentences. Share stories that sound half-accidental, then walk away. Others will do the spreading for you, and soon, you'll find yourself being discussed in places where you never set foot. Being a rumor also protects you. People can't attack what they can't confirm. They hesitate, unsure of your reach, unsure if their move will backfire. The more uncertain they are, the more they respect, even fear, your shadow. In this way, your absence becomes stronger than presence. So don't chase every room, every meeting, every table. Let your shadow go for you. Be the rumor, the whisper, the unseen force. Because when your influence is talked about everywhere, you don't need to be anywhere. Reward betrayal selectively. Betrayal is inevitable in any game of power. At some point, someone close to you will choose themselves over you. Most people react emotionally, cutting ties, seeking revenge, or punishing harshly. But here's the secret. Betrayal is not always a threat. Sometimes, it's an opportunity. The key is to reward betrayal selectively. When betrayal comes from the wrong person at the wrong time, crush it immediately. Make an example so others think twice. But when betrayal serves your purpose, when it shifts loyalty in your direction, reward it. Make the traitor feel safe, validated, even celebrated. By doing so, you send a signal to others. Crossing them is dangerous, but crossing to me is rewarding. You turn betrayal into a recruiting tool. This tactic is as old as politics itself. Kings would welcome deserters from enemy camps with gold and land. Businesses poach employees from rivals by offering them promotions and recognition. Even in personal life, rewarding betrayal can pull people permanently into your orbit, because nothing bonds someone to you like knowing you gave them shelter after they turned against another. But caution is critical. Not every traitor deserves trust. If you reward too freely, you fill your circle with snakes who will eventually turn on you as well. The trick is to be selective. Reward only when betrayal strengthens your position and weaken your enemies. And even then, never give the betrayer more than they need. Keep them dependent, keep them watched, and remind them subtly that their safety depends entirely on you. So don't let betrayal blind you with anger. See it for what it is, a currency. Punish some, reward others. By managing betrayal strategically, you turn disloyalty into a weapon that only you control. Control tempo, force reactions. The rhythm of a conflict often matters more than the conflict itself. If you move too fast, you make mistakes. If you move too slow, you look weak. But if you control the tempo, speeding up or slowing down at will, you dictate the game. And when you control the rhythm, others are forced into reaction. They dance to your beat, not theirs. Think of a debate. If your opponent is aggressive, you slow the pace with calm pauses, forcing them to look frantic. If they're cautious, you speed up, overwhelming them with urgency until they crack. The same applies to business negotiations, political maneuvering, or personal relationships. Tempo is pressure, and pressure reveals weakness. The beauty of tempo control is that it doesn't require brilliance, only patience. Silence is tempo. Delay is tempo. Even hesitation can be tempo if used with intention. Each shift destabilizes those who expect a predictable pace. The longer they stay off balance, the more mistakes they make, and the more control you gain. History shows countless examples. Generals who dragged enemies into drawn-out wars until they collapsed from exhaustion. Leaders who rushed through reforms before opponents could mobilize. Negotiators who alternated between urgency and calm until rivals gave in out of frustration. Each move was less about the content and more about the rhythm. So learn to see time not as a clock, but as a weapon. Don't always respond immediately. Don't always rush. Don't always delay. Instead, set the beat. Force others to play catch-up. Because when you control tempo, you don't just win. You decide how and when victory arrives. Use morality as a smokescreen. Morality is one of the strongest shields you can carry. When people believe you stand for justice, fairness, or higher principles, they stop questioning your moves. They see you not as self-serving, but as noble. That illusion of morality is one of the most effective smokescreens for ambition and control. The key isn't to actually be moral, it's to appear moral. You wrap your strategies in language of fairness, community, or progress. You justify your actions not as personal gain, but as service to something bigger. I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing it for all of us. This isn't about ambition, it's about protecting tradition. These statements shift perception. Even ruthless decisions can look virtuous if they're dressed in moral clothing. This tactic works because people want to believe in heroes. They want leaders to carry ideals, not hunger, so they blind themselves willingly, ignoring evidence of self-interest as long as the moral story feels convincing. And when others criticize you, morality becomes your shield. You can accuse your critics of selfishness, corruption, or betrayal of values, painting them as villains in a story where you are the righteous hero. Of course, morality as smokescreen is fragile if used carelessly. If the mask slips too far, the hypocrisy can destroy you. That's why it must be consistent, layered, and believable. Choose principles that align with your audience's desires, repeat them often, and embody them in symbolic gestures. Even small performances of virtue, donations, public statements, sacrifices, can reinforce the illusion. In the end, morality isn't just a shield, it's a weapon. It blinds enemies, binds followers, and justifies moves that would otherwise look brutal. Use it not as truth, but as theater. Because when ambition wears the mask of virtue, no one dares call it ambition at all. Align with the inevitable. The strongest waves of history are unstoppable. Once a cultural shift, technological advance, or political change begins rolling forward, no single individual can stop it. The weak resist the inevitable, exhausting themselves fighting forces bigger than they are. The powerful, however, recognize inevitability early, and instead of resisting, they align with it. They ride the wave others drown in. Aligning with the inevitable doesn't mean surrender. It means positioning yourself so that the very thing that threatens others carries you forward. For example, when technology disrupts an industry, most people cling desperately to the old ways, but the smart ones adapt early. They frame themselves as visionaries, even if all they did was recognize the obvious sooner than others. When public opinion shifts, don't try to reverse it. Attach yourself to it, and you'll look like the leader of a movement you didn't even start. This tactic works because people hate those who fight change, but worship those who seem to embody it. If you align with the inevitable, you appear not just smart, but almost prophetic. You become the figure others look to as a guide through the storm, even if all you did was grab the wheel after the ship was already moving. The key is timing. Align too early, and you look radical. Align too late, and you look like a follower. Align just as inevitability becomes undeniable, and you position yourself as the one who understood it all along. And once you're aligned, reinforce the illusion. Speak about destiny, about vision, about seeing what others could not. The world doesn't reward those who resist the tide. It rewards those who surf it. Don't fight inevitability. Attach yourself to it until people believe it was carrying you all along. Make peace loudly, plot quietly. Peace is powerful, but only if it looks sincere. If you make peace with someone publicly, you gain admiration. You look generous, wise, and above petty conflict. But the most strategic players know that loud peace doesn't have to mean silent loyalty. You can make peace loudly while plotting quietly, securing the benefits of reconciliation while secretly preparing for advantage. Public peace disarms suspicion. Rivals stop watching you as closely. Allies relax, believing the danger has passed. Outsiders admire your maturity and celebrate your restraint. Meanwhile, you continue building your plans in the shadows. The louder your piece appears, the deeper your plotting can go unnoticed. This tactic works especially well with enemies. If you crush an enemy, their allies remain bitter, but if you forgive them, their allies lower their guard. They believe the war is over, not realizing it's only been postponed. And in that delay, you gain time. Time to prepare, time to gather strength, time to strike when it hurts most. History is full of handshakes and treaties that looked like endings but were really beginnings. Politicians shake hands on stage while undermining each other off it. Businesses announce partnerships while secretly maneuvering to dominate the deal. Even in personal relationships, a loud apology can hide intentions of retaliation. The audience believes the story of peace. Few ever suspect the story behind it. So, never waste a peace gesture. Make it big, make it public, make it look final. Let others believe you've put the sword away. Meanwhile, keep sharpening it in silence. Because peace is not always the end of conflict. It's the perfect cover for its return. Give them the illusion of choice. People hate being controlled. They resist when they feel cornered. But the irony is that most people don't actually want total freedom either. It overwhelms them. What they crave is the feeling of control, the illusion of choice. That's why one of the most effective strategies is not to command directly, but to design choices where every option benefits you. You don't say, do this. You say, would you prefer option A or option B? Both are paths you've prepared. Both lead to outcomes you desire, but because they got to choose, they feel empowered. Parents use this on children. Leaders use this on employees. Negotiators use this on rivals. The choices look free, but they're chains disguised as freedom. This tactic works best when the options appear opposite. For example, would you rather take the bold step forward now or stay cautious and preserve what we already have? Both answers benefit you. One accelerates your agenda, the other maintains your position. Either way, you win, and they feel like they participated in the decision. The illusion of choice also builds loyalty. People defend decisions they believe they made themselves. They resist when forced, but commit when they think it was their idea. By offering controlled options, you plant ownership in their mind. They don't realize the game was rigged, and even if they do, pride often prevents them from admitting it. So don't bark commands. Don't force obedience. Build boxes where every door opens into your room, then let them pick the door. Because when people believe they're free, they'll follow your path with even more conviction than if you had dragged them down it. Repeat lies until they feel like truth. A single lie is fragile. It can be questioned, challenged, and broken by evidence. But when a lie is repeated over and over in different ways by different voices, it begins to take root. The human brain doesn't just process facts, it processes frequency. What we hear most often, we begin to believe, even when we know better. That's why propaganda works. That's why rumors spread. That's why repetition is one of the most powerful tools in shaping perception. When you repeat a lie, you're not just convincing others, you're reshaping memory. Studies show that people confuse familiarity with truth. If they have heard something before, they assume it's accurate. Over time, the details blur, the evidence disappears, and all that remains is the feeling of certainty. And feelings often win over facts. The trick is variety. Don't repeat the lie in the exact same way. Dress it differently each time. Tell it as a story once, drop it as a joke another time, hint at it in passing later. Let others carry it for you until the echo chamber grows so loud that people forget where it began. At that point, the lie is no longer yours. It belongs to the crowd, and once the crowd owns a lie, it becomes nearly impossible to kill. This doesn't just apply to enemies. You can use repetition to build your own myth, your own legend. Keep repeating the story of your sacrifice, your vision, your destiny, until people can't imagine a world where it isn't true. Because the truth doesn't win because it's real. It wins because it's repeated. Never solve their root problem. Most leaders, managers, or influencers think their job is to solve problems. They rush in, fix what's broken, and wait for gratitude. But here's the paradox. Solving root problems often destroys your power. If people become fully independent, if their problems vanish permanently, they no longer need you. And if they don't need you, they can leave you. True control comes not from solving everything, but from solving just enough to keep people dependent. You don't cure the disease, you treat the symptoms. You don't remove the pain, you manage it. You let people believe progress is happening, but you never let them fully escape. That's why some systems, companies, and even relationships thrive on keeping problems alive in the background. The problems become anchors, tying people to the one who holds the partial solution. Think of a doctor who never finds the cure but always has the medicine, or a boss who never eliminates inefficiencies but always positions themselves as the only one who can navigate them, or a partner who never resolves conflict but always steps in just enough to smooth things over. In each case, dependency grows because the root issue never dies. Of course, this must be done carefully. If people suspect you're deliberately avoiding solutions, they'll turn on you. The art is in making them believe you're fighting hard, even suffering, to solve their problems. Show progress, but never completion. Appear as the tireless helper, while ensuring the problem stays alive just enough to keep them tied to you. So don't aim to be the hero who saves the day. Aim to be the one they can't live without. Because once you solve their root problem, you solve yourself out of power. Keep the powerful bored, not threatened. When you're near the powerful, the greatest danger isn't being ignored. It's being noticed as a threat. Ambition, talent, and hunger are magnets for suspicion. If those above you believe you're aiming at their throne, they will move to crush you before you're ready. That's why survival often means keeping the powerful bored, not threatened. This doesn't mean being useless. It means being useful in a way that feels safe. Offer them help, but never hint that you want more. Share ideas, but never one so brilliant they overshadow theirs. Work hard, but frame your loyalty as service, not ambition. When they look at you, they should see someone predictable, unexciting, even dull, a tool, not a rival. The trick is patience. While you keep them bored, you build quietly in the shadows. You gather allies, resources, and opportunities. You rise where they're not looking, in spaces they dismiss as unimportant. Then, when the moment comes, you reveal your strength only after it's too late for them to stop you. History is full of figures who played this game. Advisors who looked harmless until they became rulers, apprentices who acted humble until they took the master's place. They survived by staying beneath notice until the timing was perfect. Their dullness was camouflage, hiding ambition sharp enough to cut. So, when dealing with the powerful, don't dazzle too soon. Don't reveal your hunger. Make them yawn in your presence, not glare, because a bored master is a safe master, and boredom is the silence in which real power grows. Simplify your image, complicate theirs. People don't follow what they can't understand. If your image is confusing, if you seem too layered, too contradictory, people grow suspicious and stop trusting you. But if you simplify your image into something clear, easy to grasp, almost symbolic, you become memorable. You become a story that can be repeated in a single sentence. That simplicity is power. Think of history's strongest figures. They weren't described with long paragraphs. They were remembered as symbols: the warrior, the reformer, the rebel, the visionary. Their complexity was real, but they never showed it. They chose one mask, one role, one identity, and wore it so consistently that people could not mistake them. Even enemies had to admit that's who they are. At the same time, while you simplify yourself, you must complicate others. The more confusing your rivals look, the less people trust them. Highlight their contradictions. Draw attention to their inconsistencies. Ask questions that make their stories look tangled. Soon, they seem unreliable, hard to follow, even suspicious. In a world where people crave clarity, complexity becomes their weakness. This tactic works in business, politics, and even relationships. If you're the one people can summarize in one line, they stand for X. You dominate the narrative. Meanwhile, if your rival takes 5 sentences to explain, they lose the crowd. Simplicity wins loyalty. Complexity breeds doubt. So strip your image down to something sharp and simple, while magnifying the confusion in others. Be the story people can tell in 10 words. Make your rivals the stories no one can tell at all. Distract with pleasure while you plan pain. No one suspects danger when they're comfortable. That's why distraction through pleasure is one of the oldest and most effective strategies of power. If you can make people feel entertained, relaxed, or indulged, they won't notice what's happening beneath the surface. Their guard drops, their focus narrows, and in that space of distraction, you prepare your strike. History is filled with examples of this tactic. Empires distracted restless citizens with games, festivals, and entertainment, while quietly raising taxes or waging wars. Leaders gave speeches full of charm and humor, while secretly drafting policies that would reshape entire nations. Even in personal life, charm works as a distraction. Kindness, laughter, or generosity soften resistance while your true moves unfold unseen. Pleasure works because it makes people want to believe everything is fine. They enjoy the comfort so much that they ignore warning signs. And the more indulgent the pleasure, the more blind they become. Food, gifts, flattery, entertainment, all are tools of sedation. Meanwhile, your real work continues in silence. But the real mastery is balance. Too much pleasure can make people lazy and unprepared, which is useful for distraction, but dangerous if you need them sharp later. Too little, and suspicion grows. The sweet spot is just enough pleasure to keep them smiling, just enough distraction to make them forget to question you. So whenever you're preparing a difficult move, cloak it in joy. Make them laugh while you reposition. Make them relax while you sharpen your tools. Let them feast while you build the trap. Because the greatest pain is always most effective when it arrives in the middle of pleasure. Praise ambition, then punish it. Ambition is useful, but only when it works for you, not against you. Ambitious people are like fire. They provide energy, light, and momentum, but if left unchecked, they burn down everything in their path. That's why the art of dealing with ambition is twofold. First, you praise it, then you punish it. When someone beneath you shows hunger, encourage it. Compliment their drive. Give them opportunities that keep them motivated. Let them believe their rise is inevitable, that you admire their determination. This makes them work harder, thinking they are building their own future, when in reality, they're fueling yours. But once ambition grows too large, once it threatens your position, the tone must change. That's when you punish. Not immediately, not obviously, but decisively. You delay their promotions. You block their influence. You remind them, subtly, that their wings only spread as far as you allow. And when they overstep openly, you cut them down in a way that makes others think twice about showing the same hunger. This cycle creates control. Ambitious people stay eager because you reward their effort, but cautious because they fear your punishment. They burn brightly, but always within the lantern you've built for them. And when they finally exhaust themselves trying to reach beyond, you replace them with another ambitious figure, repeating the process. History is littered with leaders who failed because they either crushed ambition too soon, losing valuable energy, or ignored it too long, allowing rivals to rise unchecked. The wise leader does both, feeds ambition when it's useful, and strikes it down when it threatens to consume the throne. So don't fear ambition, harness it, praise it when it serves you, punish it when it doesn't. That's how you keep the fire burning without ever letting it burn you. Make scarcity seem self-imposed. Scarcity is one of the strongest forces in human psychology. When something feels rare or limited, people want it more. But if they think you are deliberately withholding it, resentment grows. That's why the most effective scarcity is the kind that looks natural, even self-imposed, where it seems like the limitation is outside your control, not a strategy. For example, instead of saying, "I don't want to meet often," you say, "My schedule is completely full. I wish I had more time." Instead of saying, "I won't give you more resources," you say, "There's only so much available. I had to make tough choices." The difference is massive. One creates resistance. The other creates sympathy, even desire. When people think you're holding back on purpose, they push harder, they challenge you. But when they believe scarcity is natural, they chase you more eagerly. They feel urgency, as if they must seize the opportunity before it disappears. Scarcity framed as circumstance makes you look modest, even burdened, while secretly putting you in total control. This tactic has been used by powerful figures across history. Artists release limited editions. Leaders speak about limited energy or rare opportunities. Even relationships use it. When someone seems hard to access, we mistake it for value, not rejection. By seeming less available, you make yourself more desired. The secret is subtlety. Don't announce, "I'm rare." Let the world discover it naturally through your controlled absence, your limited access, your apparent restrictions. Make scarcity feel like it wasn't your choice, it was destiny. And when people believe that, they'll chase you harder than if you had begged for their attention. Borrow their language, twist their cause. Words are powerful, but they are even more powerful when they belong to someone else. If you fight people using only your own language, they resist because it feels foreign, unfamiliar, threatening. But if you borrow their words, if you speak their slogans, their values, their cause, you disarm them. They can't fight their own language. The tactic is simple. Listen closely to the words your opponents use to justify themselves. Then, slowly begin to echo those same words, but bend them toward your own agenda. If they speak about freedom, you speak about true freedom. If they speak about tradition, you speak about returning to real tradition. If they speak about progress, you redefine what progress really means. They can't argue without looking like they're opposing their own values. This method is one of the most subtle and devastating tools of influence. You don't attack their cause, you hijack it. Over time, people forget who started the idea in the first place. The original owners lose control of their own language, while you become the one who defines its meaning. The cause still exists, but now it works for you. History offers endless examples. Politicians co-opting their rivals' slogans, religions absorbing local traditions, companies repackaging criticisms as selling points. Each time, the same pattern repeats. The original voice fades, and the imitator becomes the master. So, don't always invent, borrow, don't always argue, twist, steal their language, reshape their cause, and reflect it back until they no longer recognize it. Because once you control the words, you control the world built around them. Protect ideas by making them think it's theirs. People fight harder for what they believe they created than for what they were simply handed. If you present an idea as yours, they may resist. But if you guide them to believe it was their own discovery, they will defend it fiercely, invest in it deeply, and never let it go. That's why the clever never push ideas directly. They plant seeds and let others believe they grew them. The art lies in suggestion. You don't say, "Here's the solution." You ask, "What if?" Or, "Have you ever thought about?" You give half thoughts, fragments, questions, not conclusions. And when the other person fills in the blanks, they feel ownership. They think they had the spark, even though you were quietly arranging the kindling. This tactic is powerful in leadership, negotiations, even relationships. A boss who feels an idea is theirs will back it harder than if it came from an employee. A friend who thinks they solved the problem will feel proud instead of resentful. A rival who believes they outsmarted you may actually be walking the exact path you designed. Protecting your ideas this way makes them nearly indestructible. People rarely abandon what they believe is theirs. Even if it fails, they will rationalize, defend, or reshape it, because admitting the flaw would mean admitting their own failure. By contrast, ideas openly credited to you can be dismissed, attacked, or stolen. So don't cling to authorship. Don't chase credit. Hide your fingerprints. Let them believe the spark was theirs, while you control the fire in silence. Because an idea disguised as theirs will live longer, grow stronger, and work harder for you than any idea with your name stamped on it. Let chaos justify your control. Chaos terrifies people. When things feel unstable, when uncertainty rises, when systems shake, people stop caring about freedom, fairness, or even truth. They just want order. And that desperation is the perfect soil for power. If you can frame yourself as the answer to chaos, your control won't just be tolerated, it will be begged for. The tactic is ancient. Leaders throughout history have thrived in moments of crisis, real or manufactured. A nation in panic will accept surveillance, strict laws, or authoritarian measures if it believes those measures bring safety. A company in financial turmoil will accept a ruthless boss if they believe that ruthlessness saves jobs. A community under pressure will accept restrictions, rules, even loss of liberty if those are framed as protection from the storm. But here's the art. You don't just wait for chaos, you can stir it. You can fan flames, exaggerate instability, or allow small cracks to spread until people panic. Not so much that everything collapses, that would swallow you too. Just enough chaos that people stop trusting one another, stop trusting institutions, stop trusting themselves. And in that moment of fear, you step in with calm, clarity, and a plan. Suddenly, the very chaos you allowed becomes your strongest argument for total control. This works in personal life as well. In relationships, you can let others face conflict or confusion, then swoop in as the voice of reason. In workplaces, you can highlight disorganization, then present yourself as the one who can fix it. Everywhere you go, the same rule applies. Chaos weakens people's will, and control, your control, becomes the price they're willing to pay for peace. So never fear chaos. Use it. Feed it just enough to shake foundations. Then frame yourself as the only one strong enough to rebuild them. Because when fear rises, freedom shrinks, and power flows to the one who promises safety. Frame restraint as strategy. Most people see restraint as weakness. If you don't strike back, they assume you can't. If you don't grab opportunities, they think you're blind. But the wise understand that restraint, when framed correctly, is not weakness at all. It is proof of control. And if you can convince others that your restraint is deliberate strategy, you gain more respect than if you had attacked outright. Think about silence. In arguments, the one who stays quiet often looks stronger than the one who shouts. Silence framed as patience becomes intimidating. Delay framed as planning looks brilliant. Walking away from a fight can look cowardly, unless you frame it as a choice, as if you are conserving energy for a larger battle. Suddenly, restraint becomes power. This tactic is powerful because humans crave meaning. If you leave a gap in your actions, they will fill it with stories. And if you give them the right hints, they'll write the story you want them to. For example, you don't say, "I didn't fight back because I was scared." You say, "I chose to wait because timing matters more than pride." People will nod, believing your inaction is actually foresight. Even in history, restraint often shaped legacies. Generals who didn't rush into battle, rulers who waited years before striking, negotiators who let silence stretch across the table. They weren't seen as weak. They were seen as dangerous because restraint wrapped in strategy looks like control, and control always commands respect. So, never let restraint look like passivity. Frame it as part of the plan. Let them believe every pause is calculated, every silence is deliberate, every withheld action is strategic. Because when they think your restraint is intentional, they start to fear what you're capable of when you finally decide to move. Defend nothing. Counter with questions. The moment you defend yourself, you lose ground. Defense admits pressure. Defense shows you feel attacked. And the more you explain, the more you reveal. Weak spots, contradictions, emotions. That's why defending is rarely the smartest move. The stronger strategy is to counter with questions, shifting pressure back to the attacker and forcing them into defense instead. Imagine someone accusing you, "You were involved in this, weren't you?" A defensive reply, "No, I wasn't. Let me explain," gives them power. But a counter question, "Why would I be involved?" flips the script. Now they must scramble for evidence. Another example, "You're lying." Instead of defending, "No, I'm not," you respond with, "What makes you so sure?" Instantly, the spotlight moves from you to them. This tactic works because questions destabilize. They create doubt, not just in your accuser, but in the audience watching. People who question appear confident. People who defend appear nervous. A single sharp question can create more protection than paragraphs of defense. Politicians master this art. Instead of explaining failures, they ask, "Why isn't anyone talking about the bigger issue?" Business leaders use it in negotiations. "Why would that even benefit us?" Even in personal relationships, questions can break tension. If that's how you feel, why do you think we're still here? Each time the question reframes the conversation, making you look like the one in control. So stop rushing to defend. Stop filling silence with excuses. When pressed, when accused, when cornered, ask. Ask sharp, ask calm, ask endlessly. Because the one who asks questions sets the frame, and the one who defends it always looks smaller. Erase footprints, leave shadows. Power is not only about what you achieve, it's about what others think you've achieved. When you make moves, if you leave clear footprints, people can trace your path, understand your method, and predict your future steps. That makes you vulnerable, but if you erase your footprints while leaving only shadows behind, you become a figure of mystery. They know you've been there, but they can't prove how. This is the art of invisibility. You act boldly, but you disguise the source. You pull strings, but you let others look like the puppeteers. You make decisions, but you frame them as collective outcomes. The result is that people see your influence without ever holding evidence of your hand. You are everywhere and nowhere at the same time. This works because humans crave clarity. When they see footprints, they feel comfortable. Ah, this is how it happened. But when they see only shadows, effects without causes, they feel unsettled. They wonder, if I can't see how they did this, what else are they capable of? That uncertainty creates fear and respect far stronger than clarity ever could. Great strategists throughout history mastered this. They erased evidence of their involvement in schemes, but let whispers circulate. The shadow of their influence became larger than their actual actions. People feared them not for what they did, but for what they might have done. Shadows stretch far beyond footprints. So when you act, hide the trail. Let them feel your presence but never confirm it. Erase the marks that can trap you, but leave the outlines that make them wonder. Because fear of the unseen is far greater than fear of what can be proven. Destroy symbols, not systems. When you want to weaken a structure, an organization, a culture, a movement, you don't always need to dismantle the entire system. That's messy, slow, and often impossible. Instead, you target the symbols, destroy the icons, the rituals, the images people cling to. Because symbols are what give systems their emotional power. Break the symbol, and the system crumbles from within. Think of revolutions. Burning a flag can shatter morale more than toppling a single building. Removing a leader's statue can do more damage to loyalty than fighting an entire army. Symbols carry meaning far beyond their physical form. They are shortcuts to belief. And when belief dies, systems collapse on their own. The brilliance of this tactic is efficiency. Systems are heavy, defended, and tangled. But symbols, they are fragile, they are visible, they are vulnerable. You don't need to fight every soldier in an empire. You just need to break the image that empire believes in. Suddenly, loyalty falters, and the system weakens itself. This doesn't just apply politically. In business, destroying a rival's brand image, mocking their slogans, undercutting their reputation, hurts them more than competing on every product. In personal life, damaging someone's identity, the way others see them, can break their influence faster than confronting them directly. So remember, systems feed on symbols. Don't waste energy attacking the machinery. Strike at the icons, remove the stories, the rituals, the symbols of strength, and watch the system dissolve under its own weight. Fuel conflict quietly. Referee. Conflict is dangerous if it swallows you, but priceless if you control it. People distracted by fighting each other never notice the hand pulling the strings. That's why one of the smartest strategies is to fuel conflict. Not to join it, but to referee it from the sidelines. You create division, you fan flames, but you position yourself as the calm figure who keeps things under control. This tactic works because humans crave a mediator. When groups clash, they eventually look for someone to stabilize the chaos. And if you are that someone, you gain power not by force, but by necessity. Both sides start depending on you, even if you were the one feeding the fire in the first place. History is littered with examples. Colonial powers often kept control not by direct rule, but by stoking rivalries between local groups, then stepping in as the neutral referee. Corporations fuel competition between teams, then step in to resolve disputes, keeping both sides dependent on management. Even in friendships or families, people play peacemaker while secretly planting the very seeds of disagreement they later soothe. The beauty of this strategy is that it multiplies your leverage. Each conflict you manage makes you appear indispensable. The more fights you referee, the more everyone believes you are the only one who can keep peace. Meanwhile, you sit comfortably at the center, gaining influence as others waste energy tearing each other down. So don't always silence conflict. Sometimes, add just enough fuel to keep it burning, but not enough to consume everything. Let others clash, let tension grow, and when the time is right, step in as the calm hand that saves the day. Because the one who controls conflict doesn't just survive it, they own it. Give them drama. Hide your designs. Human beings are addicted to drama. We crave stories, scandals, excitement, the emotional fireworks that distract us from monotony. And in the realm of power, this addiction is one of your greatest weapons. If you feed people drama, they'll fixate on it, argue about it, and exhaust themselves on the spectacle. Meanwhile, your real designs, the cold, calculated moves, unfold silently in the shadows. This is why great rulers, corporations, and even celebrities often create diversions. A scandal breaks, a feud erupts, a spectacle consumes headlines. Everyone talks about the drama, while no one notices the new law, the business merger, or the subtle shift in power happening behind the curtain. By the time the drama fades, the change has already taken root. The tactic works because drama hijacks attention. People don't think clearly when they're entertained or outraged. They become participants in a theater you've staged, not analysts of what's happening off stage. And once their emotions are occupied, you gain space to move freely, unseen. In personal life, this can be as small as letting people argue about a minor issue while you quietly secure the real advantage. In politics, it can mean letting the public obsess over personalities while you rewrite the system. In business, it can mean stirring buzz about flashy features while you restructure the deal. So never underestimate drama. Don't fear it. Use it. Feed the world's hunger for spectacle, and while their eyes are locked on the show, carve your empire in silence. Because drama is noise, and noise is the perfect camouflage for power. Make retreat look like rebellion. Retreat is usually seen as weakness, a sign of fear or defeat. But retreat, if framed correctly, can be one of the boldest moves in your arsenal. If you can make your retreat look like rebellion, like an act of defiance, independence, or strength, people will not see you as running away. They will see you as breaking free. The art lies in reframing. Instead of saying, "I'm stepping back," you say, "I refuse to play their game." Instead of, "I'm leaving this position," you say, "I won't let myself be caged by small minds." The act is the same. You're withdrawing, but the story becomes one of power, not loss. History remembers rebels, not quitters. Leaders who abandoned corrupt systems and painted it as resistance became legends. Thinkers who walked away from institutions framed it as liberation, not escape. Even in personal relationships, retreat can be spun as reclaiming dignity, not giving up. The key is to control the story before others can write it for you. This tactic is dangerous if mishandled. If your retreat looks accidental or cowardly, it will haunt you. But if you prepare the stage, if you signal that your withdrawal is intentional, a choice, a bold refusal, you gain sympathy, respect, and even admiration. People start to view you as too strong for the role you left behind, not too weak to hold it. So never fear retreat. Use it. Step back when needed, but cloak it in the fire of rebellion. Make people believe you're not leaving because you lost. You're leaving because you are bigger than the battlefield itself. Stay unpredictable, not erratic. Predictability is dangerous. If people can map your moves, they can outmaneuver you. If they know your habits, they can set traps. That's why unpredictability is a powerful shield. It keeps others guessing, makes them cautious, even paralyzes them. But here's the warning. Unpredictability must not slip into erratic behavior. Chaos without control makes you look weak, not strong. The difference is subtle but crucial. Unpredictability is intentional variation, changing pace, altering tactics, surprising people just enough to unsettle them. Erratic behavior is uncontrolled impulse, inconsistency without logic, instability that breeds mistrust. One makes you untouchable, the other makes you unreliable. The art of staying unpredictable is in patterns of disruption. Sometimes you respond instantly, other times you wait weeks. Sometimes you're generous, other times you're cold. Sometimes you show up everywhere, other times you vanish completely. The goal isn't randomness, it's to make others uncertain about what version of you they will face. That uncertainty forces them to tread carefully. Great leaders, negotiators, and even military generals used unpredictability to keep opponents frozen. Rivals wasted time preparing for attacks that never came, or relaxing when the strike finally landed. By staying just beyond the map of expectation, they became forces that could not be pinned down. So learn to master this balance. Be unpredictable enough to unsettle, but consistent enough to command respect. Let them wonder, let them hesitate, but never let them dismiss you as unstable. Because true unpredictability is not madness, it's control disguised as mystery. Exaggerate threats, minimize actions. Power isn't just about what you do, it's about what people believe you could do. A small move can look monumental if framed correctly, and a massive move can seem invisible if cloaked in silence. That's why one of the smartest strategies is to exaggerate threats while minimizing your actions. Let the perception of danger carry more weight than the danger itself. When you exaggerate a threat, you create an atmosphere of fear. You convince people that forces around them are darker, stronger, and closer than they really are. Fear makes them desperate for guidance. Fear makes them easier to control. Once they believe the threat is enormous, even small protective gestures from you look heroic. At the same time, when you minimize your own actions, you avoid suspicion. You don't boast about your victories. You let them appear small, almost accidental. This creates two illusions. One, that you're modest, and two, that your enemies must be even weaker than people thought if you defeated them with so little effort. You appear calm, casual, even reluctant, while in reality, you are carving victories deliberately. History shows this pattern clearly. Leaders have always inflated dangers, foreign enemies, internal conspiracies, invisible threats, then positioned themselves as protectors. Meanwhile, their actual policies or maneuvers were framed as minor adjustments, even when they completely reshaped societies. The fear was exaggerated. The action was disguised. And the people, trapped between terror and relief, submitted willingly. So, don't always strike loudly. Let whispers of danger grow louder than your own voice. Inflate the shadows, shrink your footsteps. Because people fear what they can't measure, and they trust most deeply the one who seems to defeat giants with a single effortless gesture, raise the cost of attacking you. No matter how strong you are, someone will eventually consider attacking you. It may be an enemy, a rival, or even a former ally. You can't stop the thought, but you can shape the calculation. If the cost of attacking you feels too high, most people will abandon the idea before it leaves their mouth. That's why survival depends not on eliminating all enemies, but on raising the price of hostility. You don't need to look invincible. You just need to make sure that anyone who strikes at you risks more than they could possibly gain. Maybe it's your reputation. If they move against you, they look dishonorable. Maybe it's your allies. If they touch you, they'll face a network stronger than any single strike. Maybe it's your resilience. If they hurt you, they know you'll come back harder. The key is deterrence, not dominance. Think of it like poison. You don't need to be the sharpest sword on the battlefield. If everyone knows that touching you leaves lasting damage, most will simply choose not to try. They'll aim at easier targets. They'll spend their energy fighting among themselves. You remain untouched. Not because you're untouchable, but because you made yourself too costly to touch. Even in personal life, this works. If you set boundaries so clearly that betrayal brings severe consequences, people hesitate. If you let one person attack you without punishment, others grow bold. But if you make one attacker pay dearly, publicly, unmistakably, you establish a reputation that shields you from countless future blows. So don't waste energy fighting every battle. Spend energy raising the price of battle itself. Because when the cost of attacking you outweighs the benefit, most enemies become your unwilling protectors, simply by choosing silence. Make promises as they interpret their own way. Promises are dangerous if you define them too clearly. A clear promise is a trap. You must deliver exactly as expected, or risk being called a liar. But a vague promise, an open-ended suggestion, a phrase wrapped in ambiguity, that's a powerful tool. Because when people interpret a promise in their own way, they bind themselves to it far more tightly than if you had spelled it out. The trick is to use language that feels full but says little. Instead of, "I will give you X," you say, "Great things are coming." Instead of, "I'll protect you from everything," you say, "You will always feel safe with me." Notice the difference. The first can be measured and broken. The second can be endlessly interpreted. People hear what they want to hear, and in hearing it, they lock themselves into loyalty. This tactic works everywhere. Politicians promise change without defining it. Businesses promise excellence without limits. Leaders promise a better future without timelines. Each listener fills in the blanks with their own desires. And when the outcome arrives, even if it's mediocre, many will still defend it, because they weren't betrayed by your words, only by their own expectations. And most people don't like admitting they misled themselves. The brilliance of this is that it creates flexibility. If circumstances shift, you can reshape the promise without ever admitting failure. If they complain, you simply say, "That's not what I meant." The burden of misunderstanding falls on them, not you. So don't bind yourself with promises carved in stone. Give them clouds instead, shapes they can project onto, meanings they invent themselves. Because when people interpret your promises their own way, they become prisoners of their own hopes, while you remain free. Show what they want to believe. People rarely want the truth. They want confirmation. They want to see the world the way they already imagine it. And if you can present yourself as the mirror of their desires, if you show them what they want to believe, you will gain their loyalty without resistance. You don't force belief. You reflect it back to them until they convince themselves you are exactly what they've been searching for. This tactic works because human beings are storytellers by nature. They carry private myths. I'm destined for more. Someone finally understands me. This leader will save us. They don't want you to break those myths. They want you to embody them. If they believe you're the hero, act heroic. If they believe you're the rebel, act defiant. If they believe you're wise, speak slowly and sparingly. The performance is less about who you are and more about who they need you to be. History proves this again and again. Charismatic leaders didn't always invent their personas. They absorbed the hunger of the crowd and wore it like a mask. Religious figures, revolutionaries, even CEOs became vessels of projection. People wanted a savior, so they saw one. They wanted a visionary, so they imagined brilliance in every word. The trick wasn't truth. The trick was reflection. In personal life, this works just as well. Friends, lovers, colleagues, they all want to believe something about you. If you subtly play into their belief, they cling to it. They stop questioning your motives because they're invested in their own fantasy. And the deeper their belief, the harder it becomes for them to let go, even when reality begins to crack. So don't waste energy trying to prove yourself. Don't force people to see who you really are. Instead, watch closely, listen deeply, and learn what they already want to believe. Then become the reflection of their desires. Because when people see their dream in you, they'll defend you harder than if you had ever asked them to. Work the whisper network. Power isn't always built in the spotlight. Sometimes it spreads quietly, through whispers in dark corners, through subtle rumors that move faster than announcements. This is the whisper network, a web of private conversations, hints, and suggestions that shape reputations long before the truth arrives. And if you can work it, you can shape entire realities without ever raising your voice. Whispers are powerful because they bypass resistance. People may doubt a speech, but they trust gossip. They may ignore official statements, but they lean in when a friend says, "I heard something about them." Whispered words feel secret, forbidden, intimate, and what feels secret feels true, even if it isn't. To use this, you don't shout your message, you plant it. You let it slip accidentally. You let others carry it for you, believing they're the ones uncovering hidden knowledge. You give just enough detail to make it believable, but not enough to be pinned back on you. Soon, the whisper grows legs of its own, spreading in rooms you've never entered, among people you've never met. This tactic has been used in every field. Politicians feed selective leaks to journalists. Businesses float rumors of innovation to raise stock prices. In personal life, whispers can be more lethal than open attacks, a subtle doubt about someone's loyalty, a quiet question about their motives. These seeds grow faster than formal accusations ever could. The beauty of whispers is deniability. If you're accused, you shrug, "I never said that," and technically you didn't. The network did your work for you. You don't own the rumor, it owns you. So don't underestimate gossip. Don't fear whispers. Learn to feed them, guide them, and let them spread. Because the whisper network isn't noise, it's the bloodstream of power. Play dumb, gather intelligence. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is pretend not to be smart. People guard themselves against sharpness, but they relax around foolishness. They reveal more to someone who looks clueless than to someone who looks calculating. That's why playing dumb is one of the oldest, most effective ways to gather intelligence. When you act naive, people underestimate you. They talk freely, thinking you won't catch the subtext. They explain things in detail, giving away information they'd never share with a rival. They gossip in your presence, forgetting you're listening. They assume you're harmless, and in that assumption, they hand you weapons. The trick is subtlety. You don't act like a fool completely. That would look fake. Instead, you play ignorant in small ways. You ask innocent questions. You pretend not to notice certain details. You act impressed by things you already understand. The more people believe you're behind, the more they rush to get ahead of you, and in doing so, they show you their path. History is filled with brilliant figures who hid their sharpness. Spies posed as servants. Leaders let rivals believe they were weak. Negotiators asked basic questions that forced opponents to reveal their strategies. Each time, the act of foolishness was the disguise that made intelligence invisible. This tactic also protects you. If you look too clever, people feel threatened. If you look too calculating, they defend themselves. But if you look naive, they drop their guard. You win twice. First by avoiding suspicion, second by collecting truths no one else is allowed to hear. So don't always show your sharpest edge. Sometimes the dull blade is the deadliest. Play dumb, act harmless, and let the world talk itself into your hands. Because intelligence hidden behind foolishness is the most dangerous intelligence of all. Let them underestimate your reach. One of the greatest protections in power is being underestimated. If people think you're limited, if they believe your influence only stretches to a small circle, they relax, they make mistakes, they speak openly, they act boldly, and they reveal their true positions. Meanwhile, your true reach extends far beyond what they imagine. By the time they realize how far your hand spreads, it's too late. This tactic works because people judge others by what's visible, not by what's hidden. They assume your network is as small as the contacts they can see, your influence as shallow as the moves you admit to. So, you let them believe it. You act local, small, confined, while quietly weaving connections in places they never think to look. History is full of figures who thrived under estimation. Merchants who seemed like small traders but secretly controlled vast trade networks. Politicians dismissed as provincial who already had ties to foreign courts. Even in personal life, someone you underestimate, the quiet colleague, the ignored neighbor, often has influence that only surfaces at the decisive moment. The key is patience. Don't reveal your reach too early. Let people walk into the trap of underestimating you. Let them speak without filters, thinking you're powerless. Then, when the right moment comes, stretch your hand farther than they thought possible. Their shock will paralyze them, and your victory will seem effortless. So don't rush to show your full size. Hide your span. Let them believe you are small, harmless, or contained. Because the moment you expand beyond their imagination is the moment they realize they were never fighting you. They were fighting a shadow much larger than they can handle. Build altars to your failures. Most people try to bury their failures, hide them, pretend they never happened. But the wise do the opposite. They build altars to their failures, monuments that transform shame into strength. Because when you own your failures so completely that you make them sacred, no one can use them against you. This tactic flips the psychology of power. Enemies think they've found your weakness. A loss, a mistake, a public humiliation. They wait to throw it in your face. But when you bring it up first, when you frame it as a stepping stone, as a lesson, as a badge of survival, you rob them of their weapon. What was once your shame becomes your proof of resilience. History shows this clearly. Great generals admitted battles they lost, then used those stories to highlight how they learned to win. Entrepreneurs turned bankruptcies into legends of grit. Leaders transformed exile, prison, or scandal into symbols of sacrifice. Each failure was reframed not as an end, but as part of the myth of greatness. The brilliance of building altars to your failures is twofold. First, it makes you relatable. People don't trust perfection, but they admire those who survive imperfection. Second, it makes you untouchable. If your failure is already carved in stone and worshipped as part of your story, no enemy can weaponize it without sounding like they're repeating your script. So stop burying your failures. Raise them high. Tell the story in your own words. Build altars where others would dig graves. Because when failure becomes sacred, it stops being a weakness. It becomes the proof of your destiny. Replace truth with consistency. Truth is fragile. It bends, it shifts, it depends on perspective. But consistency, that is far stronger. People don't cling to truth because it is real. They cling to consistency because it is stable. If you deliver the same story, the same rhythm, the same face day after day, people stop questioning whether it's true. They accept it because it feels solid. This is how myths are built. A single lie told once is suspicious. The same lie told 100 times becomes a narrative. The same lie told 1,000 times becomes history. The human mind prefers a stable lie to a chaotic truth. Consistency makes people feel safe, and safety always outweighs accuracy. Leaders know this well. They repeat slogans until they sink into the culture. They frame narratives so consistently that dissent sounds jarring. Even when evidence surfaces against them, their followers reject it, because consistency has created an emotional truth stronger than factual truth. Businesses do the same with branding, religions with ritual, families with tradition. What matters is not what's real, but what's repeated. But the true mastery lies in discipline. You can never contradict yourself publicly. Even if reality changes, you bend your story, your style, your tone, until it still feels the same. People will forgive lies, but they rarely forgive inconsistency. And once you lose consistency, you lose trust, because the ground they stood on starts to shake. So don't fight to own the truth. Own the rhythm. Repeat yourself until reality bends around your consistency. Because truth fades in the noise of time, but consistency endures like stone. And in the end, people would rather kneel on stone than chase a truth that won't stay still. Use nostalgia to push agendas. Nostalgia is one of the most powerful emotional forces. It softens people's defenses, blinds them to logic, and makes them long for a past that often never existed. When people are nostalgic, they aren't thinking critically, they are feeling. And feelings are far easier to manipulate than facts. That's why using nostalgia to push your agendas is one of the most effective strategies of power. The trick is to understand that nostalgia is rarely about the past itself. It's about how people felt in the past. They don't actually want to go back. They want to recapture the security, joy, or simplicity they associate with that time. By invoking nostalgia, you make people vulnerable to stories. They stop asking, "Is this true?" and start saying, "I remember when." Leaders have used this for centuries. Politicians speak of a golden age that must be restored, even if that age was full of hardship. Advertisers use retro images, old songs, and childhood memories to sell new products. Even in relationships, nostalgia is powerful. Reminding someone of how things used to be can reignite loyalty that logic alone could not. The beauty of this tactic is that it turns people's emotions into your shield. If you wrap your agenda in the language of nostalgia, resistance weakens. Who wants to argue against better times? Who wants to fight against a memory of happiness? Even if your plan has nothing to do with the past, nostalgia makes it feel righteous. So don't fight nostalgia, use it. Frame your moves as a return, not a change. Promise not a new world, but the revival of an old one. Because when people are blinded by longing, they will follow you wherever you say the past is hiding. Celebrate critics to absorb them. Most people respond to criticism with anger or defense. They lash out, they argue, they try to silence their critics. But this only makes critics stronger. It gives them the spotlight and paints them as martyrs. The wiser move is to do the opposite. Celebrate your critics, praise them, and in doing so, absorb their energy into your orbit. When you publicly thank a critic, when you say, "They raise good points," or "I respect their perspective," you do two things at once. First, you disarm them. Their attack loses heat because it's hard to fight someone who praises you. Second, you frame yourself as open-minded, generous, and unshaken. The crowd sees not weakness, but maturity. This tactic works especially well in leadership. Imagine a critic who expected to be your rival. Instead of crushing them, you compliment them. Give them a platform, maybe even invite them into your circle. Now they face a dilemma. Keep fighting and look bitter, or accept your embrace and lose their identity as an outsider. Either way, you win. History is full of leaders who turned enemies into allies by offering them respect in public. Businesses do it when they hire outspoken critics as consultants. Even in personal life, a small compliment to someone who despises you can throw them off balance, making them question their hatred. The key is control. You don't overpraise. You give just enough to dull their blade. Too much and you look desperate. Just enough, and they lose their sharpness while appearing to bend toward you. So don't fear critics. Absorb them. Praise them until they can't fight you without looking foolish. Because the sharpest criticism dulls quickly when it's echoed by the very person it was meant to destroy. Trap them in their public words, as words are weapons, but they are also chains. When someone speaks in public, when they declare a position loudly, those words become their prison. People hate looking inconsistent. They will cling to their statements, even when reality changes, just to avoid the shame of admitting they were wrong. And this is where power lies. Entrapping others with their own words. The strategy is simple. Let them talk. Encourage them to declare, to promise, to exaggerate. Don't argue, just nod, listen, and let them put their words on record. Later, when the moment comes, you hold up those words like a mirror. Didn't you say this? Didn't you promise that? Their own voice becomes your blade. This tactic is devastating because it removes responsibility from you. You don't have to accuse or invent, you simply remind. And when the crowd hears the reminder, they don't see you as the aggressor. They see the person trapped by their own contradictions. Their credibility collapses, not because of your attack, but because of their failure to live up to their words. History shows this over and over. Rivals destroyed by speeches they gave years earlier. Companies undone by promises printed in old ads. Leaders trapped by policies they swore would never change. The power wasn't in new accusations, it was in resurrecting their own words at the right time. Even in personal life, this works. People who brag too much, who overpromise, who speak without thinking, eventually they hand you the rope. You don't need to strangle them with it, you just need to pull lightly, and they choke themselves. So don't rush to outtalk your rivals. Let them speak. Let them carve their words in stone. Then, when the time is right, show them the stone and watch as their own voice crushes them. Silence. Opposition by elevating it absurdly. The instinct when faced with opposition is to crush it, to argue, to silence it directly. But direct suppression often backfires. It makes your opposition look important. It gives them dignity, even martyrdom. The more you fight them, the bigger they seem. A smarter tactic is to elevate them, not respectfully, but absurdly. Raise their voice so high, so loud, so exaggerated that people stop taking them seriously. Think of a small critic who nitpicks your every move. If you ignore them, they may gather quiet momentum. If you attack them, they gain sympathy. But if you exaggerate their platform, if you spotlight their most ridiculous statements, you turn them into a clown. The crowd stops seeing them as dangerous and starts seeing them as entertainment. Their criticism becomes comedy. This tactic works because attention is not the same as credibility. Too much attention on the wrong kind of words makes those words collapse under their own weight. People get tired of hearing them. They laugh, they roll their eyes, they dismiss. By overexposing your opposition, you suffocate them with the very spotlight they craved. History is full of this play. Rulers allowed opposition speakers to talk endlessly in public forums until the crowd grew weary of their exaggerations. Businesses overpromote competitors' flaws, making their marketing campaigns look desperate or ridiculous. Even in personal life, letting someone rant endlessly while you nod patiently often makes them look unhinged, not powerful. So don't always silence opposition directly. Drown it in exposure. Turn their voice into noise, their seriousness into parody. Because nothing kills influence faster than becoming a joke that no one takes seriously. Let enemies write the script, then flip it. There is no need to invent a story when your enemies will happily write one for you. The key is patience. Let them declare your motives, your limits, your identity. Let them frame you in their words. Then, at the right moment, flip the script entirely. By proving them wrong on their own stage, you humiliate them more deeply than if you had written the story yourself. For example, if an enemy claims they'll never survive without us, let the idea spread. Don't deny it, don't fight it. Let them invest in their version of you. Then, when you thrive independently, their words collapse in front of everyone. They don't just look mistaken, they look blind. If a rival says, they're weak in this area, let them believe it. Let them build their plans on that assumption. Then strike at that very point. Their defeat becomes their own prophecy turned against them. This tactic works because people trust narratives. Once a story is set, they stop questioning it. Enemies, in their eagerness to define you, often overcommit to their story. That overcommitment becomes their prison. And when you break free, the audience sees not just your strength, but your enemy's foolishness. Great leaders and generals have used this technique. They let opponents mock them as passive or indecisive, only to reveal devastating precision later. They allowed rumors of weakness to circulate, then used surprise to crush stronger forces. Even in personal relationships, letting someone underestimate you before revealing your hand gives you the sweetest advantage, their own words as the rope they hang from. So don't always fight for control of the narrative. Hand the pen to your enemies, let them write your story, then flip it. Because when they are wrong about you publicly, they don't just lose the battle, they lose credibility forever. Shame by contrast, not confrontation. Direct confrontation creates resistance. If you call someone out, they defend themselves. If you shame them openly, they push back harder. But contrast? Contrast is silent, subtle, and far deadlier. You don't accuse them, you simply stand beside them, doing better, being sharper, shining brighter, until their flaws scream on their own. The power of contrast lies in its silence. Imagine two leaders, one calm, measured, strategic, the other loud, reckless, boastful. You don't need to say the second is a fool. The audience makes that judgment for you. Your quiet composure becomes the weapon. Their own behavior becomes their downfall. This works everywhere. In business, you don't insult a competitor's poor product. You simply release one so superior that their weakness becomes obvious. In politics, you don't shout that your rival is corrupt. You stand beside them with clean hands, and the people draw the comparison themselves. In relationships, you don't tell someone they're unkind. You demonstrate kindness, and others feel the contrast. The beauty of contrast is that it avoids the ugliness of attack. You don't look petty or cruel. Instead, you look focused, dignified, even generous. Yet the effect is sharper than any insult, because people trust their own judgment more than they trust your accusations. When they conclude on their own that the other side is small, corrupt, or incompetent, it feels like truth, not manipulation. So don't waste breath in confrontation. Don't throw insults or accusations. Simply live the contrast. Let your presence be the mirror in which others see their own ugliness. Because shame born from comparison is far heavier than shame forced by words. Choreograph chaos. Chaos is terrifying when it is uncontrolled, but when it is orchestrated, when it is designed, it becomes one of the most effective weapons of influence. To most people, chaos looks like disorder. But to a strategist, chaos is a stage, and every unpredictable move is part of a script only you know. When you choreograph chaos, you appear unpredictable to outsiders, while secretly steering every outcome. The tactic works because humans crave stability. When chaos erupts, they search desperately for someone who seems steady, someone who makes sense of the madness. If you are the one who quietly directs the confusion, releasing problems, stirring tensions, planting distractions, you also become the one people run to when it gets too overwhelming. You become both the storm and the calm. History shows this pattern clearly. Leaders have allowed unrest to fester, only to appear as the savior who restores order. Businesses spark hype, rumors, or uncertainty, only to resolve them with perfectly timed announcements. Even in personal life, stirring controlled drama can make you look like the one who holds everything together. The trick is not letting chaos consume you. It must look wild to others, but never feel wild to you. Choreographing chaos requires timing. Release just enough confusion to unsettle, but not enough to collapse everything. Keep enemies busy with noise, keep allies grateful for your clarity, and keep yourself hidden in the eye of the storm. So don't fear chaos, don't even just survive it, design it. Because when you choreograph chaos, you don't just endure disorder, you weaponize it. Absorb power through patience. Power doesn't always come from speed, aggression, or boldness. Sometimes it comes from patience, the quiet, steady accumulation of advantage while others burn themselves out, chasing quick victories. To absorb power through patience means letting others rush, stumble, and exhaust themselves, while you quietly take what they leave behind. This strategy works because ambition often blinds people. Rivals want glory now. They want to strike first, to dominate quickly. In their haste, they reveal their moves, expose their weaknesses, and create openings. Meanwhile, the patient player watches, waits, and collects piece by piece until they hold more than anyone realizes. History is full of patient conquerors. Empires that lasted weren't built in a single war. They were built through slow expansion, calculated marriages, alliances, and decades of preparation. In business, patient companies outlast flashy competitors who burn bright and then collapse. In relationships, patience often wins hearts, where pressure only drives people away. The brilliance of patience is that it looks like inactivity. People mistake waiting for weakness. They laugh at you, dismiss you, even forget you, until suddenly you've absorbed more than they can handle. When they finally notice, it's too late, because patience has already turned into permanence. So learn to resist the urge to rush. Let others waste energy proving themselves. Let them fight battles that don't matter. Let them spend their resources loudly, while you gather yours quietly. Because power built on speed often fades, but power absorbed through patience becomes unshakable. Act out of character to reset perception. Perception is everything in power. Once people believe they know you, they box you in. They assume they can predict your moves, your habits, your limits. And predictability makes you vulnerable. That's why one of the most devastating strategies is to act out of character, suddenly, decisively, in order to reset perception. This doesn't mean losing consistency entirely. It means choosing a moment to shock, to surprise, to act in a way no one expects. If you are known as calm, unleash sudden fire. If you are seen as ruthless, show mercy once. If you are thought weak, strike hard and fast. The goal is not the act itself, it's the ripple of confusion it creates in everyone's mind. When you act out of character, people pause. They question themselves. Did I misjudge them? What else are they capable of? This hesitation is priceless. It buys you time, space, and a new sense of mystery. Suddenly, no one feels safe making assumptions about you anymore. You've broken the map they used to track you. History remembers these resets clearly. Leaders who shocked nations with unexpected moves. Artists who shifted styles radically and became legends instead of relics. Warriors who pretended weak until one devastating strike shattered their enemies' assumptions. Each time, the out-of-character act was not madness, it was strategy. The trick is rarity. If you act unpredictably all the time, you look erratic. But if you break character only when it matters, the effect is seismic. People cling to their old image of you, then, when you smash it suddenly, they're left scrambling, unable to rebuild a clear picture. So, don't let perception trap you. Don't let people feel certain of who you are. At the right moment, break your own pattern, reset the stage, because when no one can pin you down, no one can prepare for what you'll do next.